Good evening and welcome. I would like to call this meeting of the Glendora City Council to order at 7 o'clock p.m. and I welcome everybody online and in the audience tonight. I'm David Friedendahl. I am the mayor of Glendora and will serve as the presiding officer of these city council meetings. And in consideration of others, I invite us to please silence our phones or electronic devices so as to not startle somebody when it goes off, if it should, and refrain from speaking until recognized by this body. Again, this is a public meeting for the city of Glendora, and we appreciate and respect your participation here this evening. Looking at the dais, all members of the city council are here and present and ready to conduct our business. Starting off the evening, we will have an invocation from Pastor Dr. Michael Kordich of the First Baptist Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Glendora High School student Paul Watkins. Pastor, and if everybody would please rise if you're able.
Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, God of all light and life, we have come here this evening to do the business of our city, to have our council members hear from our citizens, to conduct the business that needs to be done. And so, Lord, we ask for your grace to be upon them, the wisdom, understanding, justice, righteousness, for the sake of this community. We ask, Lord, for harmony and peace as we hear from our citizens. Lord, we also want to pray for those who serve our community, those who serve in our city hall and are behind the scenes and do the day-to-day work. Lord, we want to pray for our first responders, our police officers and fire department, and those who help with the needs of the homeless, Lord. We ask, Lord, for your grace to be upon them as well. We ask, Lord, for your blessings to be upon this community, that we might glorify you. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Can everyone join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Kordich and Mr. Watkins. Appreciate that very much. Please to include that in your notes to the homework that you participated. Thank you. Brings us to a very fun part every month that we get to learn about what's happening in our local nearby high schools. And this evening we have a representative, Ms. Juliana Santiago from St. Lucy's Priory High School. So welcome. Please come up and tell us what's happening at St. Lucy's.
Okay, perfect. Hi, my name is Juliana Santiago, and I currently serve as the ASB treasurer. So in the first week of March, St. Lucy's hosted their annual Penny Wars. Each class competed against each other to raise the most money in pennies while being able to sabotage one another through silver coins, dollar bills, and card readers. The girls had so much fun competing back and forth until the senior class was finally able to maintain the top spot. On that same Friday, our school hosted our third annual Career Day. It was a huge success. This year, we decided to present our different speakers on a panel interview with the student house, while being able to answer questions from the audience. We had 3 panels in total: Women in Business, Women in Entertainment, including NBC4 newscaster Lynette Romero, and Women in STEM. After the 3 panels, we hosted a 30-minute networking session. We had many different booths of women-owned businesses where students were able to introduce themselves, make connections, and explore different career paths. Next, our senior ASB Vice President, Beatrice Peneligan, was honored at the Cathedral on March 10th for completing over 800 Christian service hours. We are extremely proud of her. Additionally, ASB hosted another fundraiser in order to raise funds for our upcoming Mother-Daughter Tea, raising over $700 to put towards our next event. Moreover, St. Lucy's hosted their new student information night last Thursday. Both the incoming students and their parents were welcome to attend. For the girls, they were able to enjoy a Regent Way rally, learning how to get through a school day at St. Lucy's the Regent Way. The parents, on the other hand, were able to meet the board members of each of our school's departments. Our Regent ambassadors, class officers, and ASB members were there to answer parents' questions from a student's perspective. Additionally, this past weekend, our track and field team participated in the qualifier meet, where our 4x200 meter and 800 meter sprint medley relay team, consisting of seniors Jada Akins, Emma Ramirez, Maddie Lopez, and junior Kayla Ordona, set double school records as well as the meet record for the 4x200 meter. Finally, we are currently in the middle of ASB elections. The girls started campaigning yesterday, and by the end of the week, we will appoint our 2026 to 2027 ASB. Some upcoming events are our first ever Entrepreneur Day on April 16th. Students with businesses or have interest in starting one will have an opportunity to promote their business ideas at our school while selling their products. It is a great way to encourage students to take initiative and create their very own business. Additionally, as I mentioned before, our Mother-Daughter Tea is on April 18th. It will be a great bonding experience for mothers and daughters to be able to dress up, eat some delicious food, and play some fun games. Moreover, our third annual Damien Tri-School Night Rally is also quickly approaching on April 24th. Our night rally has always been a favorite tradition of mine. We get to participate in class war competitions with fun games, watch performances by cheer, dance team, and the winners of the Battle of the Bands, and bond as an entire Tri-School community. This year's theme is Damien After Dark Superhero Edition. Just a few days later is our Tri-School prom, with the theme being a night in Atlantis at the House of Blues in Anaheim. Once again, it will be such a fun event, and I cannot wait to attend. This past month has been filled with extremely successful student activities, and I know next month we will host just as many more. Thank you.
A question for you. On your orientation day, did you let the students walk the steps, or did you make them run the steps?
They walked it.
Lucky them. Well, very good. Thank you so much, and we know there's a lot going. And we also know within the last couple of weeks, they had their big bash.
Oh,
It's
yes.
a big event,
yes.
and I got to go. It was wonderful, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks. Okay, I don't think I see Maya yet, so, all right, we'll move on. That brings us to the opportunity to reorder or add anything to the agenda. Is there anyone wishing to do so? Seeing none, then we will move along to public comment and open public comment. I invite members of the public to address this legislative bodies. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, speaking once on both on or off agenda items. Comments corresponding relating to the public hearing will be conducted during the public hearing session, of which we have one tonight. If you are in attendance and wish to speak, I invite you to complete a speaker card. Looks like a yellow card you may get from the clerk or at the front door. Please complete that and complete it turned in prior to the conclusion of public comment period. With that, I will invite members of the public to come up and speak in no particular order, but the order I happen to have in my cards. I'd like to invite Mr. Bob Moore. Mr. Moore, welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. Mucho gusto. We do not have a kleptocracy in Glendora, but you act like we do. For the third month in a row, Gary Boyer and his pet project is the focus of the attention of this City Hall, and another closed-circuit agenda item for Gary Boyer with no public input allowed at that time. Every month, Gary Boyer speaks for 3+ minutes. The rules don't apply to him. The city manager who works for Gary Boyer platforms Gary Boyer's topic, finds some revenue streams, along with the city staff, including a utility usage tax, perhaps the most regressive of all taxes. But it's all the rave, the city manager says. Everyone is doing it. He wants to tax your utilities, including the internet, every time you use your phone, television, and when you use utilities. Then give this money to Gary Boyer, whom he works for. For the country club crowd whom you represent, it's nothing more than a speed bump. But for the senior that came in on January 27th, representing tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of residents, she needs help. because of the skyrocketing cost of living, you told her to eat cake. You can't help her. Having air conditioning or no air conditioning in the summer, life and death hangs in the balance. Literally taxing seniors out of their utilities with a UUT and giving this money to Gary Boyer. Then the city manager moves on and talks about swimming pools. We have a humanitarian crisis. 1,000 people a day in Los Angeles County are losing their health care. Hundreds of thousands losing food assistance, lost housing assistance as well. Talk about a Glendora healthcare fund to ensure dialysis, insulin, hemophiliac medicine, EpiPens, inhalers, heart medicine for Glendora residents, food assistance for Glendora residents. Getting free internet to everyone in Glendora, as well as free public transportation for Glendora residents, should be the exclusive topics of your agenda, not swimming pools and not Gary Boyer, but services for people. People are more important than property. If our buildings were falling down on us, they'd be red tagged. We already have governmental agencies and procedures in place for this. The residents do not want our public commons sold off to private equity firms and then leased back to us for a profit. Seems like an oxymoron to me. Likewise, spending just a paltry 1.5% of total operating revenue is not significant investment in homeless, contrary to what the city manager claims. You need to stop propagandizing and stop with the obsession with Gary Boyer, Gary Boyer, Gary Boyer. I'm concerned about 14th Amendment violations with the amount of biasness and favoritism being shown towards Gary Boyer. Thank you very much. Good evening. Buenos noches. Muchas gracias, gobierno.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Next up, I'd like to invite Mr. Frank Artura. Welcome, Frank. I've done that before. Yes, it is.
All right, good evening, folks. I'm Frank Artura. I'm here tonight to support the concept of the ad hoc committee to review the buildings and structures in Glendora. I think it's a good idea for the council to appoint a committee of people with professional expertise in buildings and structures to review and make suggestions for what should be done. For 2 generations, my family has built things in Glendora, and we are very proud of what we have built here in my hometown. I have always offered to help where I can with advice and consultation. I have the qualifications that you need for what you are confronting with the buildings and structures. Throughout my 40-year career in real estate and development, I've served the city on numerous committees, including specific plans, economic development, and beautification. I'm willing to take the time, study the sites, work on options, and come up with strategies to help get the job done for the community, as I have done in the past. As you know, I've submitted a request to be appointed to this ad hoc committee. As always, you just need to ask, and I will be there to positively support Glendora in any way I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Next up, I'd like to invite Tomoko Toland. Welcome, Tomoko.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. I'm here in support of agenda item number 15 tonight, the Citizen Ad Hoc Committee. I was on the Ad Hoc Finance Committee that was created in 2018 and got to experience a glimpse of City Hall's responsibilities. It was eye-opening. It was an interesting process, and I hope that you give other Glendorans that chance too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. John Harold. Welcome, John.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is John Harold, and I apologize. I've been very busy lately, and I haven't been able to be as involved as I once was and I would like to be. The good news is the jury trial's coming up on June 15th, and so after that, I should have a lot more time. 2 issues that I'm very interested in, and I've always been interested in. First of all is the South Hills. And I know that there have been some discussions about the South Hills. Well, that's a matter we discussed at length years and years ago. And at that time, there were people who wanted to develop the South Hills, and a number of people, myself included, not want it done. And luckily, we were able to find out that most of the hills is tied up anyway, and you can't, because there were very generous people who gave property to the city of Glendora, to keep the South Hills the way it is. And they have very strong covenants in there which would affect anybody doing anything about it. But more importantly, the South Hills have always been one of the most important, in my opinion, parts of Glendora. And it's something that the people who came before all of you worked very hard to make sure that we had what we have today, and to make sure that it's being passed on to those who come after us. And so I would like to make sure everybody keeps that in consideration. And I, for one, will be keeping a close eye on what goes on in the South Hills. The second thing, excuse me, allergies. The second thing that bothers me is there is a movement with some to raise property taxes in town, and just not property taxes on the senior citizens, but on everybody. And now is not the time to do that, to be perfectly honest with you. I hear from people all the time, and when it came up that there were people who wanted to do that, my phone started ringing, and people were very concerned about it. And I'm very concerned about it. Now is not the time to do it. And particularly, part of it, I'm told, would affect the businesses. Well, the businesses have always been very near and dear to me. And one of the things I think anybody who's been around this town for any period of time has noticed is that we have a habit of losing businesses, because it's very hard to be a small business person, particularly in this climate. And now is not the time to raise taxes, property taxes, which will be, of course, passed on to everybody in this town. There are businesses that are literally struggling. We lost 2 very good businesses, which bothered me a great deal. The last being Lucabella, who just closed and stuff. And taxes, as a small businessman who used to own a restaurant, I can tell you, the bottom line is greatly affected by what government does to them. Now, it seems that government is always very interested in taking things from you, but they're not as generous about helping people. And particularly in this time that the businesses are struggling so hard, I would caution, don't do anything that would increase the taxes on the businessmen. Now, I understand
John,
that.
thank you. I think we're out of time.
All right,
Thank
I'll
you.
be back.
Appreciate your time. Always welcome. Mr. Michael Matthews. Welcome.
It's weird to be on this side of the dais after spending 9 years on that side.
Would you like a chair tonight? We could.
You know what? It might be fair. But good evening. Let me start off with 2 things, what I oppose and what I support. First of all, I join many of the people that have already spoken, a parcel tax on this city. I'll explain why. I do support item 15, the creation of an ad hoc committee that has a membership of a majority of our residents. 5 years we've had a blue tarp on this building, which we all became accustomed to. There's a famous intellectual philosopher, Noam Chomsky, who created a famous statement that goes like this: there are no poor countries, only failed systems of resource management. I find it ironic that right over our head for 5 years, we had a symbol of failed resource management. We've been talking about raising funds to take care of years of resource management failures in this city. And there's talk of tens of millions of dollars that need to be raised to handle this. But when a $50,000 repair cannot be done in 5 years, we're dealing with the wrong aspect. We need to fix what's in the city first before we go out and start printing money. I have no problem with that if we have resolved those issues. If we can't handle a small project, we shouldn't be dealing with a large project. The ad hoc committee, I believe, needs to be one filled with people that have the knowledge, the background, the skills to help make the decisions for this city, with this city, for those type of projects so we can reverse course for failed management. And I think the community deserves the right and the respect to have part of the decision-making process of what, how we do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. Sir, bear with me. Having a tough last name, I get it, but I'm going to be as good as I can. Dr. Muazzin? Muazzin? You're up. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you for giving me the time to speak about a little subject about in our community. We live in a far part of Glendora, as far as east as you can go. And to get there, after we go to Barranca, you make left on Glen Oak, I believe. And the street has been really neglected a lot. I mean, it's a lumpy, we call it in medicine, lumpy bumpy. In other words, it shakes your back and shakes your body. And we've been working on that for the last many years. I've been in this house for 30 years, and nothing has been done. And we begged everybody to do something about it, and this is what I'm here for. I mean, somebody really to have to fix that street to become nice and smooth. And my wife recently had back surgery. I'm not saying that because of that street, maybe that contributing factor, I would say that. And appreciate if somebody, your committee or anybody in charge to give interest for this subject. And the area is, I explained to the person actually, it's as far as off Barranca, you make left, like you're going to all the way to the part of Azusa, and I think his name is Glen Oak or something like that. And that's what I say. Appreciate if the city can do something about it to straighten out that street and make it smooth, like any street in the city. And that's it.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a favor. I'm going to give this back to the clerk, and I'm going to ask you to write the name of the street. Don't need your house address, but the name of the street on here. Because one, we want to make sure it's our street. Not every street up in that area is Glendora. Some is unincorporated Los Angeles County. But before we know, we need to know the name of the
We'll
street.
be glad to.
But let's look at that, okay?
No problem. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Mr. Gary Boyer.
Okay. Good evening, guys. My name's Gary Boyer, and I'm here tonight representing the Frog Committee. I want to start by thanking the council for taking up item number 15 tonight. You know, the condition of our facilities and infrastructure is something that's been building up over the last 50 years or even longer. And as a community, we have not been as engaged as we should have been over these last 50 years to make sure that it gets addressed. It's not easy to try to fix a problem that has taken 50 years to be created. At the same time, it's important to note that past city councils and city staff, they did the best job they could with the resources that were available to them at the time. So it's not about anybody that's done anything wrong. It's about the availability of resources and the circumstances at the time that decisions were made. The Frog Committee has been studying these issues and debating possible solutions over the last year. And we understand there's probably not going to be just one solution to this, but there's probably going to be a series of smaller solutions. We strongly believe that the creation of an ad hoc committee will give the community the ability to be involved in helping to identify the issues and the solutions. I'd also like to announce tonight that the Frog Committee will be hosting a public meeting on April 29th at 6 p.m. at Bidwell Forum to try to have an open dialogue and expand this conversation to as many people as want to attend. even though Frog will be hosting the meeting, it's going to be a public meeting, and we hope that other organizations that are concerned about these issues as well are willing to participate, and we hope to have some sort of a panel-type discussion. I know there's a group called the WAG Group in town that has been engaging with the community, and we'd love to have them involved in that discussion. I look at groups like the Save Glendora Schools and Glendora Forward groups that are very passionate about the city of Glendora, and we'd love to see them participate. Even groups like the Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary Club, the Kiwanis Club, the Kiwanians. This is an issue for the entire city of Glendora to get engaged in. So we're hoping that meeting, we can get as much engagement as possible. And so if there's anybody from any organization in Glendora who's interested in being part of that conversation, you can reach out to me at 626-484-0409, or you can reach us through our website at www.glendora2026.com, and we welcome everybody to be part of the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer. Was there anyone else wishing to speak during public comment that has not submitted a card? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment and bring it back to the dais for member statements. And I'll start with Mr. Alamos. Good evening.
Thank you, David. This last Thursday, at our Council of Governments, we had a presentation by both our lobbyist group and also with SCAG concerning SB 79, which is the legislation that goes around the half-mile and quarter-mile respectively around the goal line station as far as the housing elements and things that they want to push onto us. The bottom line is there's great confusion of what that legislation actually does and what it can and can't do. They're trying to interpret. SCAG is responsible for doing all the maps as far as where the half-mile and quarter-mile respectively are, and they're at odds because they don't have, the legislation doesn't tell them where to start. And so they're working toward that issue. There's a great push to postpone this for a year, but the author is reluctant to do so because there's still so many unanswered questions. They don't know who's going to be authorized to answer these questions. And that will have a great impact on our city because it is a Tier 2 station, which is going to impact us greatly. 6 stories and respectively 8 stories, depends on what kind of amenities they put on there. Also, there was a question, will this affect our 7th element, our housing element that's going to be coming up that we're going to have to address? It's a big unknown at this point in time. As you know, SCAG gives us our numbers as far as how many homes we have to build in a certain time period. And they don't know, since we're going to have an automatic increase of density, if that's going to affect us or not. That has not been determined, and this is something that they're working on. There's a cleanup bill, SB 908, that they're working as a cleanup bill. They still don't know what that's going to look like, what that's going to entail. Hopefully that will answer a lot of these unknown questions. But we're still out to lunch, if you will, on this. We just don't know where we're going to be at with that, and hopefully soon this will happen. There's a number of conversations going on in the very different cities around this issue that have either Gold Line or Metro or some sort of a Metro stop or a transit stop, because everyone is in question. Also, some of the transit districts are holding off on their plans to do anything because they don't want to necessarily affect the surrounding community with the implementation of the SB 79. Let's see.
Councilmember?
Yes.
Really quick on that front, HCD actually published some clarifications March 20th. We were notified today the Senator Wiener is removing 908 from a consideration, but there is AB 1425, I think it is, that may still be moving forward. So the Senator Wiener mentioned with the clarification that HCD has presented and staff still going through that, which is still clear as mud, as you might say. There's still some interpretation. So tiny bit of amendment that's happened in the last 24 hours. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to throw you off target there.
Welcome to California. Yeah. I have a question for staff as far as our True North surveys that we have every 2 years. They're an amazing group. They do a really good job and everything. But I start questioning as far as everyone brings up, in fact, tonight, streets. That never shows up on our survey.
That's not true. So it's the
It doesn't rise anywhere
Sure
to the
does.
top.
Yeah, it does. So if we look at the most recent survey, and maybe what we're thinking of is the previous 3 surveys, not this one. So we do ask a question on quality of life, and streets and roads of late has been in the top 3. Wasn't the top 3 previously when the city started, but it has shown up this last time. I think it's either number 2 or 3 overall.
How does a survey or how do they ask the question? They give a cafe of questions, or
No.
is it at?
So, great clarification question. So, part of the citizen or community survey that you mentioned that occurs every other year for the most part has a series of questions that occurs in every single survey, so we can measure citizen satisfaction in certain areas over time. One of the open-ended questions that is asked is a quality of life question. Open-ended question. Tell us the number one thing that would help improve quality of life. Those scores then are grouped in light categories and mostly taken verbatim. So number one issue in the community, for example, in I think 2011 or 2012 when the survey was first done, was around development. And that has slowly moved down the percentage list till it's out of the top 5 now of importance. Streets and roads shows up in the top 3 most years, and I think this past one, and I can look right now, it's definitely in the top 5 if it's not in the top 3.
So is that question asked? Is there
It's a quality of life question. So tell us the number one thing to improve quality of life, and streets and roads shows up. So that is how we know it's one of the most important things for the community is the quality of streets and roads.
I guess the question I'm asking, does it actually call out streets and roads, or just the quality of life?
It's an open-ended question. So the question is literally, tell us the number one thing that would improve your quality of life in Glendora. So it is a very important topic, and it's something we've actually mentioned in these strategic conversations we've had on both roads and infrastructures when we talked about the PCI study about 6 months ago now. So it is one of the things that we mentioned. So it is one of the top quality of life concerns for the community is the quality of streets and roads.
Okay. And can you, for the audience and the folks, the 2 people who are watching, can you talk about the app that we launched about a week ago?
So My Civic Services is an app that is part of our enterprise resource management system. We are going through some of the final testing phases now, so it is live. You can go on the App Store, either Android or Apple, and download it. You can select the City of Glendora, and you can select your issue, keep track of issues that you have. You can take a picture for bulky items, for illegal trash dumping, homelessness challenges, sidewalk repairs, potholes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It'll geocode your exact location when you submit the request so we know. You can include a picture if you want. Staff can comment and communicate through the user, and you will receive emails and app notifications when your issue's been addressed. So run into a couple speed bumps along the way, and I know Sam's listening, and so, but staff's done a really good job moving forward and fixing those as they come up, but it is a really eloquent way to communicate with your community. Appreciate you raising that.
So Sam, if you're listening, I can't put a password in.
I say even the Android people should.
That's good. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michael. Shauna, welcome.
Thank you. We have a packed agenda tonight, so I'll keep it short. But just really quick on something that Michael had mentioned about SCAG. I'm our representative on SCAG, which is the Southern California Association of Governments, and I actually sit on the Community Economic and Human Development Committee, which handles housing. And there is, for us right now, we have not seen anything come onto our agenda regarding SB 79, but we had kind of a brief side conversation last month in our meeting that we hadn't seen anything. So as soon as there's any information to share, I will be sure to share it here. And I'll apologize in advance. Our Green Hills are beautiful, but I'm having terrible allergies and a sinus infection. So if you see me step out briefly here and there, it's because I have to blow my nose. So sorry.
Okay, thank you, and please get well. Mendel, welcome.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I was hoping that Michael would have stayed because I am very pleased to announce that the roof that he was speaking about is now fixed. So those of you who have enjoyed the blue tarp, It is now gone. You need to go down to Ace or something and gaze upon the tarps that they have if you really like that. But thank you for city staff for getting that fixed, and it is now done. Lassie League has started. If you've never been to a Lassie League game, you have missed some exciting baseball, and so I would encourage you to go down and watch them. Little League is also up and going, and short of some, of just a handful of crazy parents, because I was one of those for a while. It is a great sport to watch, to see those kids go out and play their hearts out for baseball. And so I'm very pleased that the city has those events going on and would encourage us to all go out. Lastly, since 1978, March has been a very special month as women are given their appropriate space in our lives and in our time. History is a very special thing, and I wanted to say thank you for the history that Karen has, made here for 20 years. I don't want to miss that. Is it 21 years on council? She has made a lot of history, and I want to say thank you to her, a colleague that I really appreciate. Shauna is now making that again, and women have often served up here. And I just want to say thank you to each of them for the enormous amount of work that they, put in, the history that they've made, as others have, made. And within our entire staff, women play such a integral part. And I want to say thank you to each one of them for the jobs that they do. We could not be the city without you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mendel. Karen, welcome.
Thank you, Mendel, for those words. And in case anybody thought that you were trying to do some swan song, I'm not going anywhere. So
yeah, no,
just clarify that.
I just want to say thank you.
Yes. Still history to make. And a shout out to all the women in the audience who contribute in so many ways, from teachers to the folks in the back row and in the front and right up here, who continue to do so much each and every day to contribute to our society. So thank you. Last Thursday and Friday, I was in Sacramento as part of the San Gabriel Valley Regional Housing Trust. I sit on that, representing Glendora and representing the East San Gabriel Valley. And at that Housing California conference, they discussed some of the things happening around housing and homelessness. There were challenges that were discussed because of changes in federal policies. But then there were also some good news in that the state of California is trying to consolidate some of the things that they do to make it a one-stop shop, which will make it very good for cities as they try to access funds and assistance. And also along the line of bills, they are putting together a list of current and possible upcoming bills that surround housing, and we'll be making that available for cities to look at. Part of that event, there were workshops, panels, a panel discussion with some of the gubernatorial candidates around their views on housing and homelessness. So an action-packed 48 hours with a lot of information, and looking forward to what we as a city can continue to do along those lines. So with that, sir.
Thank you, Karen. Just two comments. One, in response to the gentleman who asked for some help with his street, our Assistant Public Works Director does in fact have his address already, and we will look into that to see whose is it and can we do anything. So thank you for that. Back to the women of distinction who have made a big difference here in Glendora. I share some sad news. This past weekend, former city council member and former mayor Sue Bauer passed away at home after an illness. I don't know if it was brief or lengthy. I don't know enough, but an illness. And we will miss her dearly, and I know her family will also. Sue Bauer served as a council member from 1994 to 1999. Was mayor pro tem. Pretty interesting, walking in her first day, what a big task, from 1994 to 1997, and then served as mayor from 1997 to 1999. So we send our sympathies and regards to her family and friends, and we will adjourn tonight's meeting in her honor and memory.
Mr. Mayor, if
Please.
I could just add to
Oh,
that,
welcome it.
prior to coming on the city council, I served on Sue Bauer's task force. She had a mayor's task force on youth, and as a result of that task force, we now have the skate park and the teen center. So those are two of the very notable things that she had a part in and trying to respond to and meet the needs of the youth in the community and help make both of those things a reality. So again, Women's History Month, we shout out to her and her influence on those important things.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. A great person. Okay, moving on to some fun news. We have a proclamation that we would like to present as Government Finance Professionals Week, and oh, you know what? You're on that list, and I'm sorry. Next, okay, I'm going to come back. We're not finished with statements
No,
yet.
just one quick thing, Mayor. Appreciate the time. Appreciated Michael Matthews' comment on resource management as it relates to this facility. And I think one of the things that gets often missed is the context for why it is some of the repairs and why it is that they were handled the way they were. So as this body knows, the city council actually provided staff direction for some modifications of this exact building. The city council weighed in about 4 different options for both expansion. Some of them were this way, some of them were this way, and some of them were out front. As many people may know, this was actually the original library, and the original footprint of this facility actually is about this same size to the west of this wall. When we were doing some initial repairs, we had asbestos, we had lead, and we had other issues, and we came to uncover that there was a larger part of this roof and part of City Hall that was done incorrectly when it was done, something staff had known previously and were addressing. As staff awaited bids to come in and engineering for the modifications to this facility, the City Council began having conversations on cities in general. There was $1.5 million originally at one time allocated to the modifications of this very building. And so part of the reasons why the tarp stayed on as long as it did is we didn't want to spend $50,000 for a moderate repair only to turn around and tear all that off. So agreed with the comments on resource management. One of the points I have is to contact Mr. Matthews and remind him of the history on why it is that it took so long. And as it became clear that City Council, again, was going to have a discussion like it's on your agenda tonight on one-time funds, that CIP was removed in lieu of a smaller roof project, which is why the repair proceeded in the manner it did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Raymond. Mr. Edelshire, welcome. No?
Nothing tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Coming back, I would like to recognize with the proclamation and invite Finance Director and Treasurer Kyle Johnson and his team to please come to the podium. Wow, great. To everyone watching, these are experts that manage and keep our finances in proper order and keep us out of the dungeon. So with our proclamation, I'd like to say, whereas the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers, CSMFO, is the state's leading professional organization dedicated to promoting excellence in financial management for California's local governments. And whereas government finance professionals serve cities, counties, special districts, joint powers of authority by ensuring transparency, accountability, and responsible stewardship for public funds. And whereas these professionals play a critical role in managing complex budgets, complying with state and federal laws, maintaining accurate financial reporting in compliance with government accounting standards, administering utility rate processes and enterprise funds, and support long-term financial sustainability. Whereas California financial landscape shaped by Proposition 13, Proposition 218, the GAN appropriations limit, CalPERS pension obligations, and fluctuating economic conditions requires expert analysis and sound financial leadership. And whereas finance professionals work diligently behind the scenes to provide critical information that enables informed policy decisions and ensures the delivery of essential public services. And whereas recognizing Government Finance Professionals Week during the last week of March helps highlight the dedication, integrity, and professionalism of these essential public servants. Now, therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Glendora, do hereby proclaim March 23rd through March 27, 2026 as Government Finance Professionals Week in the City of Glendora, and encourage all residents to recognize and appreciate the hard work and contributions of the finance professionals who serve our community. In witness thereof, I have put my sign to the seal and the seal to this document on this date, the 24th of March, 2026, and signed by myself and noted with the other council members as well. So congratulations, and may I present your wallpaper. And invite comment from any or all.
Okay, I'll speak. So I'm Natasha, Assistant Finance Director. I just really want to thank our team. Really, when the rubber hits the road, like finance it's a lot. It's tough. It can get chaotic, and you guys always do such a good job at making sure we stay calm, get through it. You guys face any challenges that we're faced with. You guys do a great job of just stepping up and helping get the job done. So I really appreciate you guys and enjoy working with you guys, and look forward to many more years.
Thank you very much, and congratulations. Well done. Good deal. Did they ask her to stop for ice cream on the way home? I can never. They should. Okay. Well, congratulations once again. Next, we'd like to invite an update on addressing Glendora's homelessness programs as of March 2026, and invite Human Services Supervisor Eric Dermeyer to present. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm happy to be here and present an update on the current state of homelessness in Glendora and the city's response to it. In January, the city participated in the Greater Los Angeles Homeless Count, hosted at the LaFetra Center. There was a strong turnout of volunteers, which included city and county staff, elected officials, and local residents. The point-in-time count is mandated by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Results from this count have a direct impact on the funding received for homeless services and housing. The data from January 21st is being processed currently by a team of researchers from USC's Suzanne Dvorak Peck School of Social Work in coordination with LASA. Results are expected later this summer. This fiscal year, the city received its first grant from Measure A revenue, the countywide half-cent sales tax to fund homeless services and affordable housing. $180,536 was awarded to Glendora from the Local Solutions Fund, a subcategory of Measure A funds that is provided directly to cities for specific programming. This slide highlights the amounts awarded for specific programs. $100,000 of the grant is directed towards costs associated with the city's current outreach services. This funding also allows the city to offer new support beyond case management, including move-in assistance, landlord incentives, family reunification, problem solving, and short-term rental assistance. On this next slide, we see Glendora's Measure A expenses through February 2026. Staff helped one individual reunite with family out of state, where she will continue her education and obtain employment. Another family was provided a security deposit to relocate to a more affordable housing and avoid an eviction. Motel vouchers were provided to 4 individuals during severe weather this winter. Implementation of the city's homeless services are a collaborative effort between the Human Services Division at the LaFetra Center, Licata Outreach staff, and the Glendora Police Department, specifically its Community Impact Team. Since the last update to City Council, the team has placed 2 individuals into permanent housing and 11 individuals into interim housing. The Licata Outreach Team has had 49 new client encounters in that time and 658 total encounters. This graph tracks these encounters from September to February, comparing the new encounters in orange to the total encounters in green on top. If you note the peak right there in the middle, that's the result of our team's first homeless resource event, where we partnered with service providers and a local church to offer food and clothing, as well as employment and mobile medical services. There were 35 encounters that week and an additional 39 the following week. Almost every individual engaged that day was an existing client, but many had been hesitant to receive services before the event. Motel vouchers are an important tool to help people progress towards housing goals or address urgent health issues. The resource is also used as a crisis intervention during severe weather events, as we've had this past winter. From September to February, 7 individuals received a motel voucher. The typical length of stay is about 1 to 7 nights. An increasingly important part of the city's efforts to address homelessness is to prevent residents from losing their housing in the first place. Staff help households identify programs that they may be eligible for and facilitate referrals for financial assistance, case management, or a variety of other home supports. One of our goals is to educate households about programs that can help reduce expenses. We also coordinate closely with service providers like YWCA, Catholic Charities, and Helping Hands Senior Foundation. And when necessary, we've provided financial assistance to help households avoid eviction. The city's response to homelessness-related concerns emphasizes a service-first approach that utilizes enforcement measures as necessary for safety and quality of life situations. Since the last update, the police department's community impact team has expanded to now include 3 officers supervised by Sergeant Ward. The expanded team continues to work closely with the Licata Outreach Team to offer services to remote encampments, facilitate service referrals for individuals with regular police encounters, and ensure that environmental and safety concerns are addressed promptly. CIT officers and Licata staff have focused their efforts on encampments like the one shown here to connect individuals to services and encourage more discussions about housing resources. The services that our clients receive are a result of strong relationships built with community partners. Some of our ongoing partners include Shepherd's Pantry, Glendora Unified School District, and YWCA, which provides case management for seniors at the LaFetra Center. The city also receives essential support from Department of Mental Health clinician who joins the Community Impact Team once a week. Shown here is our most recent partner, the East Valley Community Health Center, which has begun providing mobile medical services twice a month with our outreach and CIT team. Since our last update, our team partnered with 2 faith communities to provide warm meals and hygiene services. The First Christian Church of Glendora prepared warm Thanksgiving meals, which our staff distributed to 24 unsheltered individuals and 2 families at risk of losing their housing. Glenkirk Church donated produce and dried goods, which we added to the distribution. Glenkirk has also continued to open its doors to our clients weekly for shower and hygiene services. These are some of the photos from our Thanksgiving meal distribution. Our team went throughout the city meeting people where they were, providing food, but also scheduling future appointments. You can imagine the impact that days like this have on our relationship with our clients. We try to take advantage of every relationship our team has with community partners and have utilized a service delivery model that has been effective throughout the county. We held our first homeless resource event at the Lone Hill Park and Ride in November, again in January, and most recently this past week. For a few hours, multiple vendors, including our Licata Outreach Team, provide a low barrier opportunity for individuals to connect to services. A mobile medical clinic offers on-site exams, basic wound care, and behavioral health services, in addition to referrals to the brick-and-mortar clinics for vision, dental, and prescription services. Glenkirk Church volunteers offer food, meals, and hygiene supplies. Employment and county benefit services are available through the Department of Public Social Services and America's Job Center of California. And legal aid is available to help remove barriers to employment or housing. Lastly, here are some of our highlights since our last update. One youth expressed interest in moving back in with her family out of state. So after staff confirmed that she would have a safe place to live and their family would help them pursue their education and employment goals, we purchased airfare and transported the youth to the airport. Another time, our Lakota team responded to a referral for an individual who was barefoot and appeared to be in an altered mental state here in town. They consulted with the community impact team and the Department of Mental Health clinician and confirmed this person was reported missing and in need of higher level of care. He was immediately met with medical care, and staff were informed that he would be reconnected back to supportive housing. That concludes our update, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Great work. I'll bring it back to the body for discussion or questions and start with Shauna.
Thank you, Eric. I always appreciate your reports. Just one quick question. The case management and outreach services is heavy on the expenses. Can you just elaborate what that is?
Referring to the Measure A?
Yeah, so looks like most of the expenses, the vast majority are under case management and outreach
Sure.
services.
Yes, so this, fortunately, the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments, who helps administer the Local Solutions Fund to cities, including us, they agreed to allow us to put the majority of our expenses towards case management and outreach services, with the admin costs down below $12,000 for the reporting and just the administrative part that the contract management includes. So that's going to include everything from obviously outreach services, but linkage to interim housing, substance use services, any of the documentation support that our outreach team does, any advocacy for legal aid, connection to mental health, to medical services. They have specific outcomes that they want to see from our outreach staff, so that we're not just paying staff to be in the street and kind of just drive around and fill their day that way. We need to show that we're making X number of interim housing placements each year, permanent housing placements, and we can track that back to any successes we have. We can track back to the outreach team and their efforts. So the Local Solutions Fund, if that answers your question, that kind of accounts for the majority of the services that we provide. And then the other services, move-in assistance, landlord incentives, a lot of those grow out of the outreach services where the bulk of the funding grows. So if we have clients that are being engaged through the case management and outreach services, and they've determined that they're ready to take that next step to move into housing, we can tap into our move-in assistance fund, pay for security deposits, furniture, if there's any fees to help them, let's say, get a license so that they can obtain a certain type of job, for example. We can pay for that and then pay for short-term rental assistance too.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Shauna. Mendel?
Eric, thanks. You and your team are doing a great job. I was just sitting here thinking about when I first joined here and the absolute, should I say, mess that homeless stuff was creating within our city. And we've come a long, long way. And city staff, the resources, have done a tremendous job in truly helping these people. And clients, the word that you've used, they are exactly that. And I am thankful that you and your team treat them with the kind of respect, the kind of endurance that you use to help them to see a better life. And I appreciate that. The only question that I have is, and Adam, maybe you can answer this, but how much of, especially the CIP team, comes from either Measure A or E?
So we'll both take this question. So you want to talk a little bit about Measure A funding, and I'll talk a little bit about the CIT team.
Sure. So Measure A will not fund any police department expenses. This is going to be strictly the Lakota outreach team.
Okay.
And the services that both Lakota and I provide through the case management that we kind of respectively
Okay.
offer. So I might help with some of the eviction prevention case management services. If the Lakota outreach team has engaged an individual and they're ready to move in for, to begin engaging with landlords, I might step in at that point. So that's Measure A, that's local solutions. Anything beyond that would be
And the CIT
different
team
funds.
is pretty much entirely funded with Measure E and Z.
Well, that's what I thought, and I wanted to confirm that because we sometimes hear of the fact that E and Z were taxes that were put on the people here, when in fact that we took an active vote, a citywide vote, to have those funds stay here, and it's a wonderful thing that those funds stayed here because we have officers that truly work this area, care for these people, and do a great job that otherwise we probably would not have, or at least we wouldn't have the size of team that we have. So I just wanted to kind of drive that point home. So
Mendel, and I would just add what Measure A has a hard time covering as well. Measures E and Z pay for a lot of the homeless services as well. So it's really a two-front. Those funds by our residents and those that visit the shopping went right back into providing services at the boots on the ground level.
good. Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mendel. Michael?
Thank you. Thank you, Eric, and thank you for everyone else on your team. You guys do an amazing job, and we got Debbie out of her car. She has a van now, which is amazing, which is always really good. On page 8, there's a graph there, and it kind of shows the historic and the new. How is that? Do you see a level? It looks like it's leveling off because the graph is getting a little tighter. Do you actually see that in practice as far as a number of encounters that you and your team are seeing?
Yes, short answer, yes. The number of counters does seem to be leveling off. There are individuals that are kind of the Glendora, born and raised and don't really want to go too far from home. Those folks are consistently here. There are some new faces that pop in, but for every new face that comes in, it seems like there's another new face that's exiting and going into Los Angeles or accepting shelter in Lancaster or somewhere else. The folks that are more willing to accept those further out resources tend to be not from Glendora. The folks that are more local want to stay local, but we don't see any big spikes in the numbers, at least, of people. Faces change, but the overall numbers seem to be consistent.
Have you seen a change since the Gold Line has opened the station here with the folks coming through?
So there's two perspectives. There's the police department number of interactions, and then there's our outreach. I can only speak to outreach, and I can say that we have not seen a significant increase in the number of individuals here in town. If someone does ride the line, I'm not going to pretend like they don't. They get off, they kind of look around, realize this isn't where they want to be, or for whatever reason, they continue to ride. There's this, like I said before, there's kind of similar number of encounters that we see week after week. We have made extra efforts to outreach the A-Line station just in case there is any kind of uptick, and we haven't noticed that ourselves, not from the point of view of people that are sticking around town.
What's the utilization rate of I believe our 8 beds for Lakota that we?
Right, so those resources are not local resources. So it's difficult to engage with individuals that, Lakota is a substance use treatment organization originally. And so a lot of those beds they have kind of a high barrier, kind of a high barrier to access those beds. You need to have medical clearance, for example. You have to be willing to receive treatment. The beds have to be available. So if someone is willing to go, we tend to have better luck with them going to Pomona, for example, in the treatment facility that's there just because it's closer. Substance use is something that is a difficult barrier to overcome with a lot of people. It takes a lot of engagement. So we don't see a lot of people using those resources. But when we do have someone that is willing to go, it's great to have that resource and have it be something that we can pull the trigger on pretty quickly.
But are we having any capacity issues
We're not having
beds?
any capacity where we're trying to attain a bed and it's not available. No,
Okay.
it's nice to have it available because we just never know when someone is going to be available, and you kind of
it's a
have to
good
take
resource.
it day by day. Yeah, it is a great resource to have. When someone's available, you want to be able to use it quickly.
One of my last questions is, it's on, I guess, page 8, the prevention, 75% of self-resolved or ineligible. What makes the request ineligible?
So, for example, they may make too much money. You know, they may not be in the low income bracket. They may have a household where there's 2 full-time incomes, and it's something where they could just kind of work their budget out and resolve themselves. They may not be from Glendora, which we tend to get more of that than there's more people that are from Glendora that heard about our resource than there are people that are financially able to self-resolve. That's, you know, if you're reaching out for help, you probably do genuinely need the assistance. Or there's just a lack of follow-up for whatever reason. They may be eligible, they may be a Glendora resident. I might ask for certain documentation to verify their income, to verify their identity, and then they just don't follow up with those requests.
Okay. So Adam, as of 8:06 tonight, what is the COG's position in helping us with the Measure A implementation for funding? So I know that they were talking about managing that for cities.
No, I think that, and Eric can answer some of these questions. So the COG have looked at, one of the challenges at a really high level with Measure A is that as the county adds different requirements, it's become readily apparent that they don't want us to be in the case management of sort business. I think that's an easy way to say. And so the COG is constantly doing a great job fending off those sort of what I would call additional attacks on our ability to utilize Measure A funds in a meaningful manner for Glendora. There's a larger conversation to be had at the COG level for cities that if we have the ability in some cases, say, to have our funds pooled, but the resources that Eric and Debbie and their team need are readily available, then great. That's something we would consider. The amount of just paperwork and bureaucracy at some stages that we have to go through and Eric had to do was pretty significant. You know, we're generating millions of dollars a year from Measure A and getting less than $200,000 a year back. It's not a great return on your investment. However, Eric does a great job and Debbie does a great job in trying to find ways to make those funds work. And so as of 8:06, 8:07 this evening, the COG, I'm sure, is continuing to find ways to try to help us utilize those funds within the context required by the county.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And to answer Mendel's questions, around $800,000 from Measure E and Z from the budget and brief. If you look at that, it'll show that line item there. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Karen?
Thank you. Thank you, Eric, for your report, and thank you for all that you and your team do to show compassion and that continuous follow-up, because each client does take investment of time and energy, so thank you for that. And also, I was just going to make that clarification for anybody listening, when they hear about the community impact officers, that's not the only thing they do, that homelessness is one piece of the community impact team, but there's other quality of life issues they're engaged on and other services. So I don't want people to think that Measure E and Z are paying for 4 officers to spend their entire time just on homelessness, because there is that differential. So that investment was to help with the overall quality of life issues that our residents are concerned about. So, but thank you.
They've actually been helpful for our own unsheltered clients as well. When clients tend to be targeted like anyone else in the community for crime, and so if someone was assaulted by someone, whether they're unsheltered or not, having that relationship with the CIT officers has made it easier for the CIT officers to follow up and kind of perform their detective duties and their crime prevention and their investigative duties that is also a focus of the CIT team. So it's helped and been a great example of how the CIT team serves the unsheltered and the sheltered population here in town. So yeah, it is. Thank you. It is a good point to make that they're here for people that are housed or unhoused.
Right, and that's a helpful way to look at that that relationship, just as the relationships you and the Licata team build, that their relationships help in crime prevention and crime solving. So that's very helpful. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. Also want to let the public be aware of the $180,500 we received from last year's allocation. We've spent $74,000 on services and budgeting things, another $25,000 on trash cleanup and three different events to keep our city as pleasant as we can keep it in those areas. We're spending a lot of money beyond what we get back, and it's a great note to your team that you do a lot with very little. And the city puts in as much as we can afford to add to the program to make sure that we're meeting the needs. But we're still beating on the folks upstream to get a fair share. So thank you for that. With that, I have no other questions. I will entertain a motion to receive and file this report.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Alawas, second by
Second.
Mr. Thompson, and invite us to kindly place our vote to receive and file. Motion carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Brings us to item 5, a consideration of proposed funding recommendations for the fiscal year 2026-2027 of the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, if you want to say that quickly, funds. And because this is a consideration of the public, we will open it as a public hearing and invite Economic Development and Housing Manager Tiffany Chu to share. So welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight, I will be presenting the proposed fiscal year 2026-27 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan. This is the first step in the annual process to review and consider the proposed funding recommendations. As a reminder, the CDBG program is administered by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The program is designed to support community investment, particularly in areas that benefit lower-income residents. While the funding comes from the federal government on an annual basis, to eligible cities like Glendora, we have an opportunity to determine how those funds are applied. As a reminder, CDBG projects must be aligned with the program's national objectives, demonstrate a public benefit, serve low and moderate income households, and address blighted areas. These requirements guide both what we can fund and how a city can prioritize projects. Also, the projects must be aligned with the 5-year consolidated plan. In May 2023, City Council approved the current consolidated plan that guides funding decisions over the next 5 years. We are currently in the 4th year of the current CON plan, and this CON plan reflects community input and identifies the city's highest priority needs over time. Tonight's proposed action plan is consistent with this direction, with an emphasis on infrastructure and neighborhood improvements. For this upcoming action plan, we are working with an estimated total of approximately $376,000. This includes new entitlement funding as well as prior year funds and program income. Because the final federal allocations had not been released, we are using conservative estimate based on prior years. The notice of funding availability process was completed, and we received 2 applications, one from the Housing Rights Center and one from the Public Works Department. The proposed funding allocation seen before you is in 2 activity categories, 20% for administration and fair housing, and 80% for infrastructure improvements. This structure complies with federal regulations. The Fair Housing Program assists residents with housing-related issues, Meanwhile, the Public Works project focuses on improving safety and accessibility. This map shown before you is the anticipated street improvements highlighted in the blue lines. These qualifying improvements will replace damaged curbs, gutters, sidewalks, and curb ramps to improve mobility for residents. Approximately 1,200 residents will benefit from this improvement. And so at tonight's meeting, this represents the first public hearing in the process. Following this, the draft plan will be made available for a 30-day review period, and then staff will return to council in May for the final consideration. Once approved, the plan will be submitted to HUD to secure the funding. And so tonight, staff is recommending that City Council open and conduct the public hearing and receive any input. We also ask that Council accept the proposed funding approach. We recommend moving forward with the draft plan to forward with the required review period. These steps will ensure that we remain on track to meet federal deadlines. This concludes staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. And again, I will now open up for public testimony and invite members of the public to speak on this item only. You will have 3 minutes to speak if you choose to, and ask you to kindly fill out a speaker card and submit to the clerk before the close of this public hearing. Madam Clerk, have we received any cards?
We have not, Mayor.
Not on this item. Okay, one last chance. Anybody wishing to speak on this item? Not seeing any, I will close public comment and bring it back to the panel for discussion. And I'll begin with Mr. Thompson.
I have nothing to ask, just excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you. Shauna?
No questions from me. Thank you, Tiffany.
Michael?
Good job, Tiffany, on this. I do have a question on item 4 in the rehabilitation on the staff report. It says that we can divert funding for public and privately owned housing for low and moderate income housing. How difficult is it? Is it too late for this process this time to maybe allocate for for low income housing for air conditioning units in the window or something of that nature, or for folks that don't have, these heat waves are coming and things of that nature? Is that something that we can do now, or is it too late in this cycle? We have other cities surrounding us that have done that. In fact, Azusa just did theirs, and they did some home improvements for some low-income housing as far as for those folks. Is that something that we can do, look into, or is it too late in this cycle?
For this current cycle under our consolidated plan, it's currently not a priority, but we will be starting the next 5-year plan next year, so that can be considered as part of that process.
Okay. And so to consider that, what's the process for us to consider?
There will be a community input conversation, so we'll have that time to talk with council, but also talk with the community about what the priorities are for that next 5-year con plan.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all the questions.
Thank you, Michael. Karen? No comments. Okay, I have one question. You mentioned 1,200 residents of the service area for the safety improvements and things. Is that bodies or household doors?
It's residents, and it's based upon census tracts.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. No other questions? At this time, I will entertain a motion to accept the recommendations.
I'll move items 1 and 2.
Second.
Second by Mendel, and please vote. Motion carries unanimously, 5-0. We thank you very much. And I'll close our public hearing. Brings us to our consent calendar, items 6 through 12. Items on the consent calendar will be enacted by one motion without individual discussion unless a council member has requested it be removed or has separate discussion. Does anyone wish to pull or have a comment on any of these items? Hearing none, I'll say no and entertain a motion to approve items 6 through 12.
So moved.
Second.
All right, and invite us to kindly place our vote. Thank you very much. Brings us to member agenda items. Number 13, the unscheduled vacancy on the Water Commission update, office number 3, a term expiring June 30th, 2029. And invite Deputy City Clerk and Records Manager Roxanne Brasida to report. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I am here to provide an update on the unscheduled vacancy for the Water Commission Office Number 3 recruitment, with the term set to expire on June 30th, 2029. The City Clerk's Office received a notice of resignation from Water Commissioner Justin Nakano, creating an unscheduled vacancy for the Water Commission. The notice of the unscheduled vacancy was posted on the city's bulletin board's website and advertised in the San Gabriel Valley Examiner, specifying that applications would be continued to be accepted until the position is filled. Following the 2025 Water Commission recruitment process for the annual scheduled vacancies, 4 applications remained on file. The City Clerk's Office contacted those applicants to confirm continued interest in serving. Of the 4 applicants, 1 applicant withdrew from consideration, and 1 confirmed continued interest. As of today, the City Clerk's Office has received no confirmation of interest from the pending applicants. During the initial recruitment period for the unscheduled vacancy, which closed on February 10th, no new applications were received. However, staff increased recruitment efforts and received 4 qualified applications. At this time, 5 qualified applicants are under consideration for the Water Commission Office Number 3 vacancy. Please note, a new qualified application was received yesterday and has been distributed to council, provided to the public, and will be added to the agenda as a delivery under separate cover. This report provides the City Council with an update on the present options for direction on how to proceed with filling the vacancy. The following presents the next steps for consideration. This concludes my report. I am available for any questions. And the 2 options that we have available are to schedule interviews with the qualified applicants at a special meeting on April 14th, or option 2, to provide alternate direction as you deemed appropriate.
Okay, thank you very much. Bring it back for question and discussion. Mendel, would you like to begin?
Any update on Diana, or Michael? Are they pending still, or?
I have not heard back from them, and I tried 3 different ways.
Okay. I'm fine going ahead and having our usual time on April the 14th, as we've done in past cycles. So I would affirm from that. Thank you for, this update.
Thank you. Shauna?
No questions for me. I concur with April 14th. Sounds good.
Michael?
I'm in support of option 1.
Okay. Karen?
Ditto. Option 1, the April 14th interviews.
Okay. Question. So do I. I have one question, and I'll address it to Mr. Aylshire. We have one candidate that is currently working in a water agency that the city ultimately does some form of business with. Might that be a conflict?
No, we looked into this, Mayor, and that individual does not have a conflict of interest in that they're they don't have an incompatible office conflict. Their duties and roles do not require any supervisory or auditory or other oversight role over that department, so there's no conflict.
Great, good to hear. Thank you very much. And once again, it's going to be difficult because there's some excellent candidates that are looking to take the seat, so appreciate that. With that, I'll entertain a motion to, sounds like, to accept one of the options, and it's leaning toward option one is what I'm hearing.
Move
And-
option one.
And we do have 5 candidates, which we typically do about 10 minutes for interviews and with appointment. My recommendation would be to schedule at 5:30
Absolutely. And if,
for a special meeting.
sure, okay. Did I hear a motion by Mr. Alawas? Okay.
Second.
I'll ask us to kindly vote. Motion carries 5-0 to take option one and schedule interviews for the interested candidates. Thank you very much. Brings us to agenda item 14, consideration of a resolution adopting an adopting an updated legislative platform to be used as the background to review proposed legislation and requests for support or opposition. And presenting tonight will be City Manager Adam Raymond. Mr. Raymond.
Good evening, everyone. Appreciate your time. Brief presentation this evening. The item before you is some minor policy updates to our legislative administrative policy and the update of a new legislative platform. So a legislative platform, as you indicated, establishes the city's legislative priorities and provides direction to staff to help out and advocate for the passage of legislation at different levels, from regional, such as the county, to both the state and federal levels. This enables staff and legislative advocates to respond quickly to legislation and not come back to council every time that there's a request before this body. The draft legislative platform before you this evening aligns with our new strategic plan goals: suburban living, Glendora as a destination, new and revitalized city facilities, sustainable infrastructure, and staff and technology. The guiding principles of the legislative platform remain the same as they did previously. These are preserve and enhance local control, maintain fiscal responsibility, promote economic development and infrastructure, support public safety, and encourage regional collaboration. I will add that the report was also updated with individual items under these goal and principle areas that reflect the city council's actions under the previous legislative policy that weren't specifically in the document. The proposed policy amendments which are included in redlined fashion in your packet clarifies an annual review process of the platform with the mayor and mayor pro tem to determine if there's any policy matters that need to be updated, and if they are, we'll be before this body with that. It also allows for what we call ministerial updates or non-policy items, such as updating the year of the legislative platform, new strategic plan goals. Elected officials in the state of California will have some realignment of federal elected officials. So Gil, for example, Cisneros will be our entire elected official, so we'll have to change this policy, amended accordingly. City council members may also change from time to time, so elected official titles as well, mayor, mayor pro tem, et cetera, et cetera. And then also, one of the pieces that we did not have previously is from time to time, this body may take an action that's not specifically included in your legislative platform. An example of previous actions, this body took action for a Cal Cities item that Councilman Alawas did. That language is included in the new platform, as well as we've had hearings in previous a direction from this body on federal legislation in our foothills. And so this now would allow for the process. If it's that bad, you just tell us. I'll skip towards the end. Happily. So, this would allow the body to take an action, and then we can update the policy document that's shared with a lot of our member agencies and our lobbyists as well. So pretty minimal. I would call them more clarifying and cleanup items from one policy review to the next. So no fiscal impact. Following, if the city council approves what's before them this evening, the updated platform will be posted on the city's website, and it'll be passed along to all of our legislative partners, including Cal Cities. And this will be the new guide for advocacy efforts and shared with city personnel. So the item before you tonight was reviewed by the executive team and fully incorporates all the previous direction by the council. And with that, happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Adam. I'll bring it back for discussion. Mendel?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. My comments will be brief. I think it's time to get this done. It's been, I think, 7 years since we've updated this, and I think that's enough time to accommodate changes. And then lastly, on slide 5, it shows very obvious things that need to be done in a timely basis, and this would enable us to do that. So I'm hoping that this can be done. Thank you.
Okay. Shauna?
No questions for me. Sorry for the interruption, Adam. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Michael?
No questions.
Thank you. Karen?
I was just going to say, I think that the way that it's been organized and how you have it divided by departments as well as the strategic goals is very helpful for anybody trying to look up things. So thank you for doing it that way.
We'll thank Rose for that. She put it all together for us.
Good job, Rose. Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Rose. All right. And I appreciate the cleanup and the housekeeping items and being able to incorporate by membership name the associations and lobbying groups that we clearly work with, and gives us the chance to support their efforts, which are leaning toward our combined efforts as a collaborative membership group. So perfect. With that, I'll accept a motion for recommendations of 1 and 2.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Motion by Karen, second by Mendel, and ask us to kindly place our vote. Motion carries unanimously 5-0. Very nice, thank you. All right, on to the next one. Item 15, information on citizen ad hoc committees, city council subcommittees, and direction of the use of one-time funds. And invite City Manager Adam Raymond to present.
Okay, I know there's some denser information in here, some kind of detailed policy direction requests that staff thinks we may need in order to move forward with one direction or next. So bear with me, I'll try to be brief and happy to answer any questions. So how we got here this evening, back in January of 26, City Council had a pretty significant conversation about city facilities and including the Civic Center. As a part of that conversation, the City Council asked staff to come back with a discussion on one-time funds as part of our mid-year budget update. That discussion was held in February of 26. Council received a report on one-time funding. We had a motion to receive and file that report with any policy direction per se, but staff agreed to return after that conversation with information on advisory groups, both city council and citizen. And again, no action was taken as relates to a conversation on one-time funding. To help with the discussion this evening, in case there's any clarity, the entire staff report from February 24th is included as an attachment to your packet this evening. So what is a citizen advisory ad hoc groups? And so typically they are comprised of residents who study specific policy areas. They can look at research or gather input. They're an additional way to garner community feedback. They provide recommendations to the city council or staff in some cases on policy plans and programs. And these bodies do not have decision-making authority. They are advisory, not legislative. Permanently, the city does have several standing communities and boards. All of you are familiar with Planning Commission, the Water Commission, Planning Commission, Library Board, Business Improvement District, and Recreation and Human Services Commission. As we note at the bottom, these efforts typically require a significant amount of staffing resources with coordinated community engagement, and that's a good thing. The groups that are engaged and ask questions, that tends to be the case. So recent citizen advisory committees, we have the official title of the Revenue Options and Expenditure Committee, otherwise known as the Citizens Ad Hoc Committee. That was established in 2018. I was hired in August to begin in September, and the City Council appointed this group in early 2018 in the May timeframe. This actually came as a result of a strategic planning session in, I believe, April of that year or March of that year. This is a group that recommended the initial recommendations in late 2018 to put Measure E on the ballot. They issued a final report, which is also included in your agenda packet. In November of 2019, it discussed land sales, outsourcing, revenue measures, and historical staffing, which showed the city was about 30% below historical staffing, a number of which we're still at. The last check-in with the City Council occurs in December of 2020, at which time the City Council's direction was essentially, if necessary, the City Council would engage this group again. This committee was 20 members with both a chair and co-chair. Total length of time was about a year, an additional 6 months then for the final report to be written. More recently, City Council has established an antique streetlight advisory panel, and I would mention all the information really quick for this committee was available on the website. For the Antique Streetlight Advisory Panel, this was a Brown Act group that had a chair, it was 10 total members. City Council, over a 3-month period, provided us direction on the process to recruit these individuals, what their qualifications should be. And they looked at garnering community information and potential support for the reestablishment of a lighting and assessment district. The total process was about 7 to 9 months, with a vote about 10 months after, 11 months after the group was established in the first, or we had that conversation at council. Unfortunately, that effort failed with about 35% voting yes and 65% voting no. However, at future council direction, those antique streetlights will be part of a future project along Glendora Avenue, which we're able to leverage some one-time funding and money we have from the first last mile projects. There is also an option for a city council subcommittee, which is typically composed of 2 council members. They study specific issues or policy. They garner input, research, and community feedback at times. They provide recommendations to the city council on policy plans and programs. They are a decision-making authority dependent upon city council direction. So oftentimes these council subcommittees have a little more authority than, say, a citizen ad hoc committee. But there are Brown Act issues with more than 2 council members assigned to a subcommittee, so there could only be 2 at any one time. Again, these efforts too can require significant staffing resources depending on the scope and the in-depth review. For example, we recently had 2 members of the council, Mayor Pro Tem Davis and Councilmember Alawis, who participated in a subcommittee for the Dale Affordable Housing site, where they gave their insights to the city council, which assisted with some direction the city council provided staff. They also took field trips and looked at housing types, population served, and some fiscal challenges in the market that it relates. So this is another option. If city council moved in this direction, staff would recommend a full-blown Brown Act subcommittee, and in a similar fashion with citizen committee, where all the information is publicly available online and the broadcast would be streamed accordingly. So what are some of the potential structures in looking at these 2 groups? So citizen ad hoc committee, additional community representation, typically broader engagement and expertise, typically with new topics before a body. For example, in 2018, when the city council undertook that topic, it was to look at city's operations, both expenditures and revenues, that had not been done in quite a long time. City council subcommittee is typically 2 council members. There's direct coordination with staff. Typically, it can be a faster review process because city council is more aware of the policy issue before them and has seen a lot of the material. There is a hybrid approach that we have seen in other cities where there's a citizen committee and the council appoints a liaison, not someone that facilitates discussion during a meeting. They're more of a passive, not active engagement. Cities that we've looked at have between 1 and 2 council liaisons. It's typically 1, but sometimes there are 2. Again, there's only a maximum of 2 for this body for the Brown Act issues that we talked about previously. So there's a decision matrix that we'll go through, but again, council discussion on one-time funding, whether to establish a group to study the city's facilities and infrastructure needs. These are the 2 main areas of policy direction staff would be looking for. There is an attachment in your packet this evening, and we've done our very best to try to lay out some of the policy questions we think the city council, based on prior discussions on subcommittees and citizen advisory committees that may exist. We've also tried to tailor the policy questions we're going to ask the city council about, or you may want to ask yourselves about during your the conversation, specifically for facilities and one-time funding. So, for example, the first policy question is, does the city council wish to establish a group to study the city's facilities and/or infrastructure needs? Is it yes? Is it no? Is there a combination? And some of the policy implications are, establishing a group may allow for deeper analysis and community input, but extends the timeline of a specific topic in certain cases. Handling within city council, a subcommittee maintains speed and direct policy control. The city council, for example, may also establish a work group scheduled to discuss a specific item. For example, the city council could discuss a standing council workshop on facilities and infrastructure that occurs, for example, every 3rd Tuesday of the month. Just an option. If the city council wishes to establish one of these subgroups, really the question then becomes, is it a citizen committee, is it a city council subcommittee, or is it a combination, which is a city ad hoc committee with city council liaisons? If a citizen ad hoc committee is selected, what are the qualifications should the applicants possess? For example, do they need experience in large-scale infrastructure projects, public contracts, prevailing wage, transportation, streets, engineering, construction, finance, capital planning, project management, community representation? Basically establishing some basic qualifications ensures the relevant expertise while maintaining the community representation, depending on who those individuals are. If it's a city council subcommittee, obviously the council would need to decide what 2 council members would serve in that capacity. The other thing that's outstanding would be, what is the purpose and scope of the work group? The broader the scope, the longer it would take. Is this, for example, a review of city facilities only? Is this a review of city facilities and streets and roads? Or is this a comprehensive review of all major capital assets, for example, facilities, streets, roads, and water? As I just mentioned, a broader scope increases the complexity and timeline. If only facilities are selected, for example, the city council policy direction would be needed on infrastructure priorities. For example, streets versus facilities, what's more important, or what should take precedent for this discussion. And then one of the options, for example, should the group review previously presented information? This body has discussed at length and ad nauseum a great amount of items related to both infrastructure and facilities. Should a subgroup review the adopted strategic plan and recommend modifications? If a group's selected, should they recommend prioritization among infrastructure categories, meaning streets versus facilities? Again, just additional council direction in any extent possible is helpful. And also, I think an important one for council consideration this evening is what financial framework should guide the review. Is this to focus on only projects fundable immediately with one-time available resources that we talked about previously, or is this to evaluate all projects in the adopted 5-year capital improvement program? Those are 2 very different things, and any guidance would be helpful. And wrapping this up is, What policy direction does this body want to give in terms of what one-time funding? Is it reserve some funding for future streets, reserve funding for facility improvements, allocate all available funding now? It really determines, again, as we talked about in terms of one-time funding, our long-time fiscal flexibility and quite frankly, project sequencing. There's also an open question if City Council is open to allocating one-time funding towards non-capital programs. That hasn't been something that we've previously discussed, but it is a question that may arise and something that we would like City Council direction on. And finally, if there is a discussion on one-time funding, how much one-time funding would we like to discuss? Based on the previous conversation, we've tried to provide some ranges here. And estimated impacts, 5 million and under, 5 to 8 million, 8 to 12, 12 plus. Options A and B would still allow us some financial flexibility in the future. Option C allows for moderate financial flexibility depending on economic downturns. For example, we may have 1 year of additional flexibility in an economic downturn, but not 2 like we'd have currently. And option D, a more aggressive use of one-time funds would significantly limit our flexibility in future years and may impact bond ratings. And lastly, an important item is when we looked at the previous timelines for citizen advisory groups, this is not typically a short process. The amount of engagement those groups typically require is extensive. They typically have lots of really good questions. They need time to absorb the information, and there's a lot more of an ongoing dialogue educating individuals on some of the things that have been done. So we would look at some, if the City Council moves forward with the subcommittee, some desired timeline. It's also possible that you could have multiple timelines, come back with certain decisions in 3 to 4 months, come back with certain decisions long-term. So by no means an exhausted list, Council, of all the policy questions before you. Simply a potential framework that you could utilize in discussing the item before you this evening. The more specific policy direction the city staff has, the quicker we can return to this body. And with that, Mayor, I'll turn it back over for discussion and happy to answer any questions that this body may have. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you, sir. Bring it back for discussion, and I'll start with Shauna, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item was a lot. I feel like I've spent a lot of time reading over this. And as I continue reading this, I feel like it's falling into 2 separate categories for me. There's the question of the use of one-time funds, and then there's, to me, a separate question of a potential creation of a committee to discuss the city's infrastructure needs. The one-time funding, I mean, we're talking, where's the numbers here? On 8A, some, different options, 5 million, 5 to 8, 8 to 12, 12 plus. For me, I would run it more conservative to moderate conservative. I really only want to see, maybe 5 or, 5 to 7 million used. I don't personally need a committee to decide what I think that level of funds needs to be utilized for. I think that's what we're elected to do. I would like to see something that benefits the entire city. I mean, we need a lot of work everywhere, but I think one thing that everybody would feel immediately is our streets. We get a lot of complaints about our streets, and rightfully so. And I think that one-time funding would be well utilized, addressing some of the concerns on our streets. So that's one piece. Having said that, I think that there is a broader discussion that is already starting to happen and needs to happen surrounding what we want the future Glendora to look like in terms of our facilities. And, we have right now kind of 2 different camps formed. We have the Frog Committee that is looking at the library and what we want to do there. And then we have another group that is opposed to, an increase in taxes to pay for something like that. And I feel like my role on council is, just down the middle, right? I support both sides and their right to present that to the community. But I think it's a larger discussion that needs to happen, and I would like to see a lot of different parts of this community involved in that discussion. So I'm leaning towards like an ad hoc committee. I don't want it to be too large because I don't want it to bog down the process, but I think that we are a proud community and we like being involved in these discussions. So as many people as we can effectively include in a committee like that, I think is good, because we need to talk about things that are like generational. In terms of a library is kind of the current thing right now. Like, do we want to fix the library or rebuild the library or even have a library? Like, those are big decisions that I think the community deserves to be involved in. So I'm leaning away from it being something that's just like council directed to being something that we actually have the community involved in. But I do like the concept of it being like publicized, so everybody, even if you're not on the committee, you can be a part of these meetings and watch them and follow along what is happening. So that's kind of where I'm leaning right now.
Okay, very good. Michael?
Adam, this report is really well done. You really thought out a lot of the scenarios, so I'm really grateful for that. David and I had a conversation yesterday and went over some of these items since we were the makers, you might say, of this originally. I'm falling into option 3 of the hybrid approach, where you have the ad hoc, you have the citizens out there with this different experience, and you have 2 council members as liaisons, just to be bumps on the log and provide whatever information that they request and get it back to them, or whatever we can do under the Brown Act and how this supposed to work out. I'm sure we'll be schooled on that. But I think that involving the community is always the best way to do this sort of thing. And if you go down to this list, I went through your sections, all 9 of them. And for the step 1, I would say yes, a review group. Then item 2, a combination citizen ad hoc committee with citizen council liaisons. And then you have all the different requirements that they would have to have. I'd say yes to all of them. They're all really good suggestions. Then you have 2B, which says council subcommittee no, because if you're going to do the combination, you wouldn't need that. What is the purpose of the scope? And it's B, review facilities and streets and roads. Keep it fairly simple and not go further than that, because otherwise it gets too far into the weeds. Should the group review previously presented information? A, yes, absolutely. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Should the group review the adopted 2025-2027 strategic plan? Yes, it's option A, evaluate and recommend changes. 5, should the group recommend prioritization among infrastructure categories? I said yes, recommend priorities. And again, this is a recommendation. Council has final approval or say on any of this, but I like for this council or the ad hoc committee to have freedom to be able to discuss all options, things that we might not even have thought about for some reason. 6, the financial framework should guide the review. A, focus only on the projects fundable immediately with available one-time funds. There's a caveat is, as far as I know, that we're working on some grant possibilities that we're working on. We have an opportunity coming towards us, and being yes, immediately, meaning after the final report comes back to council. That's the immediate, not prior for them to do any of their due diligence. 7 would be the policy direction should guide the use of the one-time funding. Allocate all available funding now, meaning the end of the combination timeline that the group gets together. Is the city council open to allocating one-time funds towards non-capital programs? No, that's not what was discussed originally. 8A is how much funding should be considered for use of one-time. None of the above. I think that should be an open question, and coming back to the council. Again, the council has final say on all of this. I don't want to pigeonhole the ad hoc committee into one certain direction. What is the desired timeline for the group? I would say no more than 9 months. Anything in between there would work, but no more than 9 months. So I added this other one, membership number, which wasn't on here. I would say a maximum of 9. And also, it came up in some of the discussions out there in the public to actually have them research funding streams if there's anything else that they're aware of, or Mendel had brought up in one of the meetings that there's possible capital out there that we can get, add that to this as opening up the breadth of possibilities. And last one, council liaisons, I would recommend and request and ask the council to appoint myself and the mayor to this, since we were the makers of this original direction. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you, David.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Mendel?
Thank you, sir. A lot of different thoughts. I do agree that the one-time funds should be settled among the 5 of us. I think we're elected and capable of doing that. I really don't want to wait 9 months or a year for another group to tell us what they think that we should do. I would submit that we could go 5 to 10 million and still probably keep our AAA bond rating and everything like that. I think we should act on that sooner than later, and go ahead and do that. I am not opposed to a group, but I do think that there's a process that we need to explore among ourselves first. I think there's a lot of questions that we should answer as elected officials. Areas such as grants, line of credit, private funding, our overall plan, our overall staffing. There's a number of things that I think that we need to answer first. I would like to see us have, as I think Adam alluded to in his update, a workshop every third week among ourselves first to determine the exact purpose and goal of what this group may or may not want to look at. I think that they should obviously look at facilities, because that's the thing that's here. I applaud Gary's group, Frog, for bringing this up to us. It is an issue that will be here even if nothing's done. And there's a handful of folks out there that don't want taxes. I don't want taxes, but I don't want buildings to not be able to be used and function and be effective for the citizens who have paid for those. So I think that there's a lot of work that the 5 of us should do first before we launch into who's going to be this. I hate to say it, but it's election year. And I've been through 3 of these cycles. And as pure as people want to be and strive to be, it's not always able to work out, as pure as that is. So I'm a little bit suspicious on some of these things. that maybe I shouldn't be, but I've experienced this, and election years do strange things to a lot of people, and I think we need to be aware of that, aware of who's on this group, if we have a group, what their purpose is, what the timing is, all of those things. That's the elephant that's in the room that I haven't heard really spoken about, but I think it's a real thing. And I believe that that's an important thing. So I would, in summing up my thoughts, I would like us to move sooner than later on allocating some one-time funds, determine what those funds go for, and make that occur. I do feel like that we should have some workshops every third week and clarify what we want done and who we want to do it and parameters of who's going to serve and number of people. Michael said 9. I'm fine with 9. I think you can get a lot done with 9. The other group that I was a part of, and some people here were, got a lot of work done too. And we need to look at that body of work, because they worked very hard, and a lot of it is still current, and some of it has been done. And I'm thankful that we did some of those things, because it saved our bacon back in those years. So I think that's all that I would have to say at this moment in time. I'm looking at my notes, and so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mendel. Karen?
Thank you, sir. I would agree with the amount being conservative and that it could be something that we decide. I guess in looking at a committee, my question is, what's the purpose? If the purpose is to talk about the facilities, I took the workshop idea I had a different understanding of what that recommendation was. And I think that's the most inclusive, but I don't want to say a workshop and make that more work for staff. But I saw the workshops as having those, and each workshop would be a different topic. Because to me, have one workshop that's talking about the library and what can be done and people's opinions about, do you need a library, not need a library? What kind of library, all that kind of stuff. Because to me, having a workshop that as many people as possible can come to is more inclusive of the community than 9 people who are the loudest or write the most emails. That I think trying to get the most people in the room to have those conversations about our facilities, and then at the end of that, then allow people to have input as now after they've heard this information, what do they think is important? Then we, who've been elected to make tough decisions, make those decisions going forward. But even in the short term, if we wanted to do something with 5 to 8 million, we can make that decision in the very near future. But I think if we truly want it to be inclusive and informative of as many people as possible, you don't want some committee, because who and how and what, but I think to make it as inclusive as possible and have conversations and information about those topics. I know that the Fraud Committee has had a lot of those conversations, but it sounds like there are people who did not have the opportunity or avail themselves of some of that information. So let's go there again and say, okay, this is what the city has talked about for several years now on this facility, that facility, and what are we going to do about it? So to me, workshops would be much more inclusive than some committee, and I share some of the same concerns that you shared as well, Mr. Thompson.
Okay, thank you. I'm kind of a mixed bag, I think, as Shauna alluded. There's a couple of different issues here, and to put it all into one is not a simple solution at all. I clearly think that I support the idea of a experienced, valued citizens ad hoc committee to take on some of the tasks that may not be included in the second issue I'm going to bring up. But that needs to be a qualified group, and the list of considerations here are absolutely perfect. I like the hybrid approach to that of a citizen group with some council participation, lean in, sit quietly, close your eyes and ears. No, close your mouth, leave your eyes and ears open, I guess. You is us, yeah, whoever. Okay, got it. I think that's excellent. I think that the use of the already available and well-researched information that's out there should not be lost. I don't think we should start over and reinvent that. I'm not looking for a committee that's going to change the strategic plan direction that we've already established. Doing that would be foolish, I believe. So using that information, using the current facilities assessment that we know today is, you got to have a stick in the ground starting point somewhere. Don't start over. Use that and move forward. At the end of the day, if something's chosen, yeah, there's going to be adjustments. There's cost adjustments minute to minute. So don't start over and reinvent that just for the exercise. Don't want to do that. I clearly think that we need to keep a priority of not losing community services and not losing staff. Those are assets that those are non-negotiables in my opinion, and that we should keep those as definite bold points in the requirements. The committee, I believe, can look at funding opportunities, some of the recommendations from the 2018 report, 2019 report that may not have been exercised yet, popular or not popular, but maybe they need to be looked at again as a consideration. Don't rule anything out. Be creative at it. Look at some of the other capital funding opportunities, grants. We don't do well in grants, but that's not for lack of asking, but let's ask. So with that, I think that clearly I support an ad hoc committee type of operation with some of the specific guidelines chosen here. And I would also like to make a motion of a second item. My motion would be to take and define available surplus funds now with the willingness to even bring our reserves down to 30% from 40%, and exercise the corporate yard, public works yard structure plan that was presented to us a few months ago and execute that. Get something moving now and let the ad hoc committee determine what's next. I don't think that water or streets should be in that program only because we already have that survey. We know those conditions. We have money funded, and I would suggest any additional funding that comes that way, the motion would be to direct it toward additional street work. So we get the public works yard restored, recreated, and work towards streets while we are working on what's next and the next steps of funding and opportunity for the bigger facilities picture.
David, with that, not opposed to that, but that still has to be engineered, because all we have is conceptual drawings, I believe.
I look at my stats right now, or Valerie, I believe the construction drawings are well underway in that, and council already authorized that agreement. Just for the
I
clarity's
believe
sake.
that's what, a $12 to $15 million ask?
Good evening, council members. We're almost done with the construction plans, so that project would be ready to go. You are correct, we are estimating that project at approximately 12 to 15 million. We've got some refining to do and some pencil sharpening to get that number more precise, but that's the kind of the number that we've been operating within.
And that would take all of the funds.
Well, I think that's a point of clarification here.
And I did leave out one piece I want to come back and cover. In available funds, I am not interested in touching pension or the OPEB 115 trust funds. So is that enough to cover it? Maybe not.
So just a reminder for everyone here, taking a reserve down to 30% is about, let's call it 4.5 million plus or minus $100,000 there. That's what the differential is. There's another almost, let's call it about 5 million between San Jose, and then if Dale moves through as planned, that would become available in the next 2 years. But that 2 million from 2.13 from Dale is not available yet. Outside of those dollars,
So you're talking 12 million then with the Dale?
you have Measure E and Z apparent about
Another
2 to 2.3 million. That doesn't quite get you there. We'd have to wait to see what bids come back on those amounts, or look at some of what the construction documents say and any unanticipated stuff. There's obviously environmental concerns and other things like that we'd have to address on that site.
It is possible, if I could interject too, we haven't explored phasing for the project. That could be a component of it, right?
That's correct.
Take it in multiple pieces.
Would that affect pricing from the contractor?
Most certainly. There's a substantial amount of infrastructure-related work that needs to go there, not just to deal with some of the challenges that we're currently experiencing, but also kind of to position our public works fleet for the future, and primarily through electrification of some of our fleet. So it won't be a 50-50 distribution. It will be I'm shooting from the hip here, but it's probably somewhere around on the order of 60-30.
And I would just add one thing for council consideration, or thing to keep in mind as we go about this process. So as part of, I think everyone knows, our EOC is currently in the library building. And so part of the assessment, there's actually an assessment doing.
That's Emergency Operations Center for the.
Thank you, Mayor.
Curiosity.
That's a good indication. So, as we've learned most recently with some of the natural disasters, is having that Emergency Operations Center at somewhere like the Water Yard is not ideal, a little too close to the foothills, and we have some concerns. So having a city hall is accessible to the public, but also raises some other issues where the gravity concerns of that building first identified in the 1980s and the structural assessments that happened then were not addressed during the fix in 2004 and show up again in this structural assessment in 2023. When we studied, for example, things like the shade structure in 2022, we had new issues that arose at that facility, like footings, for example, that were undersized according to modern day standards. That assessment did not include, for example, what it would be for the EOC to continue to stay in that facility. So one of the things in terms of phasing for the public works that we may need to consider is if the city does need to move its EOC, that we may have to look at modifications and phasing plans in other areas of the city. So not that they're directly correlated, but there could be a correlation as we go about.
Realistic considerations,
Yep, that's exactly
absolutely.
right, Mayor. Yep.
Meaning what, as far as fixing the EOC, or?
So there are certain building
Identifying a different
standards specifically for those buildings that house those types of operations. The original assessment does not take that becoming an EO or staying an EOC into consideration. There's a note in the report, as the city council knows, but there's no cost estimates, for example, on what it would require for the structural integrity. But I can share with you that the same gravity issues that existed in 83 and 88 are still the same ones that existed in the 2023 report. So there are a number of things that we'd have to look at, Mayor. And so as part of the consideration and as Moises is explaining, we don't know enough yet about phasing on some of the public works facilities. So there is a possibility that some of that could be modified to accommodate a structure like that on site.
What's the timeline to go out to bid? What are we looking at before we would have to allocate funds?
Well, if we started today, we'd be looking at publishing, bringing it to council. Actually, we don't need to bring it to council. We could just go prepare the documentation and prepare the bid package. We typically open that for a couple of weeks, have it, give them, contractors a couple of weeks to respond. We'll look through the proposals, talk to them if we need to talk to them to provide clarification, and then when we're ready to award, we come back. So we're talking about several months.
Do we have to allocate funds prior to going out to bid?
No. If we went out to bid and the project came back substantially higher than what we initially estimated, well, then we don't have that amount of money available, so we're gonna have to figure out a plan B.
So we're saying maybe 4 to 6 months?
I think that's reasonable, once we've got everything ready to go.
And do we know what the timeline is before the final construction documents are with us?
We have them.
There you go.
So rather than kicking the can any further, I'm stomping on it.
Yeah, and I know Valerie's back there waiting on some timelines. We are doing concurrently some additional assessment on the library, bringing it up to the new building standards, so on and so forth, and answering some unanswered questions in the last assessments and trying to tie what is now 4 structural assessments that we've done since the 80s on that building into some sort of singular piece of literature that we can share. So, yeah, there are lots of considerations, I think, along the way here. I just want to make sure I understand the comments about additional funding for streets and roads. So typically, as the council knows, water infrastructure, we use water funds to pay for water repairs. We don't use water funds to pay for things that are not water fund related or enterprise fund related. We have asked for federal appropriations for Glendora Avenue and some of the water tank up there, which was not deemed as attractive a project as other projects, and we continue to try to find grant funding. Wanted to touch really quick on your comment on streets. So we currently identified a need for an additional $3 to $3.5 million a year in order for us to achieve the CPI goal that the council set for staff. The grant funding for streets, just so we're clear, is not great. It's a very difficult process. And so if there are not an infusion of one-time funding, I am unsure how staff may make the additional $3 to $3.5 million up, but it is something, Mayor, that we can work towards. And so as we consider it on that path, any clarification you have on what exactly that you're referring to as excess funds we could use for streets?
Well, I don't want to exclude funding for streets. I want to keep that as certainly an option that should funding come that, a pie in the sky. I realize that. The Public Works Yard is a big number.
Yeah.
If we can meet that number or figure out how to make that attainable, and then monies come, be it development opportunities or something that brings funding, certainly address it toward continuing the street process.
And staff can show, we've done some work in anticipation of the meeting tonight in case council had asked what various segments of streets cost. We've done some cost estimates and would be happy to bring some of that back if council would like to see that as well.
Yeah, that's why, to me, still, there's 2 questions there. One is, how much one-time funding are we willing to spend? But I wouldn't want to, tonight, say, this is how much I want to spend, and this is what I want to spend it on, until we get a chance to maybe just put those things side by side of, this much is needed right now if we want to do the streets we hoped for, and this much is needed for this, and then say, okay, we're willing to spend this much, and so, I mean, that's my feeling. I don't want to say tonight, okay, we're willing to spend $10 million, and we're going to spend it at Public Works, period, until we, have a chance to let the dust settle.
And I'm not proposing to remove the budgeted street projects not erase those in lieu of, no, I'm not proposing that, so. Maybe I'm nuts, but I'm
Well, hence the idea for the ad hoc committee, because then you have experts that come in that help, does this. We're not experts in this. We can have all the workshops that we want to have. We've been talking about this for quite some time. How many years? I mean, we have 2 facility studies that we have. We have 2 studies on the library, and we haven't, we've been having this discussion. It would be nice to have the public, as what the Frog Committee has done on their own, have deliberated on this. It'd be nice for us to bring the residents involved with this, bring the citizens involved with this, bring it back to us so we can make that educated decision. Obviously, the maintenance facility is going to be on our list on a higher priority. We also have to do something with the library one way or another, but then we have all the other ancillary maintenance things. Adam?
No, I was just going to say, we do have a motion on the table from the mayor that if there's a second or not, but do you mind reading that again, Mayor, so we have it for the record one more
Sure.
time to see?
I move we define available surplus funds through the reduction of reserves to 30% and exercise the corporate public works yard restructure plan as previously presented and initiate that project now.
So there's about 4.6 million in that request as written.
But it was 2 parts to your motion. One was to do the ad hoc and then also spend
Well,
money now.
there were 2 things. I support an ad hoc program with the parameters we've said. However, in
Yeah,
the
and-
meantime, moving forward with something in the immediate future.
Okay, so this group can, as I think as the mayor is saying, you can create multiple motions, you can have multiple actions tonight, that's not a problem. So, but Mayor, as I understand your specific request would be to utilize up to $4,580,000 towards the Public Works project, utilizing the construction plans that we just received that were completed. Just to be clear, that'll have a significant shortage, so we would have to look at some sort of phase.
Look at, can we find,
Got it.
bridge the gap without compromising
Okay.
services and stay out of the pension fund. I don't want our finance director undoing his trust.
There you go.
Well, can we parallel the ad hoc committee at the same time?
Well, I think it's a separate issue, and I support the separate issue.
So is your motion only for the 4.6? Or are we, I'm not,
I'm thinking we can find available funds in the moderate plus category that we suggested in 8A.
So perhaps, Mayor, part of the actual request is to look at one-time funding opportunities, including a reduction of reserve from 40 to 30%. And that would potentially include San Jose and Measure E and Z funding or future other funds from sale property.
30%, that was the minimum, right? Are we taking that all the way down to the minimum?
Yeah. Of the current policy, that's correct.
Which is only the general fund and not inclusive of Measure E and Z.
That's correct.
And when you say Measure E and Z, are you saying excess money from those? Or are you saying all of the money that comes in? So what's currently funded by that gets ixnayed?
No, it would be, I think, available funds. So as I understand the mayor talking this evening, you're specifically talking about the one-time items we discussed on the 24th of February. So I'm looking at that item, which is the attachment to the report. Not to misstate things here, but in this current 2-year budget cycle, we anticipate between now and June of 2027, there to be fund balance in there of about $2 million, 2.2 million.
So David, will you amend your motion to include the ad hoc committee with that ask for the maintenance yard so we can do parallel at the same time?
I'd rather have it as a separate, no.
What's the urgency, Michael, on the ad hoc?
There is no urgency.
Well, yes, there,
We've been dealing with this
let
since
me
when.
finish, because I had the floor. 2 weeks ago, you and I got into a little bit of a tiff, because you were hell-bent on getting this group formed. You're pushing the buttons right now to get this group built. We don't have any parameter about what this group is. We haven't settled on any of that. And you know, the interesting thing is the people that I think you want on this group never availed them to go to Gary B and talk about what they were talking about. But rather, they used their energy to squash that, which is okay. It's their right, but now they're going to be like the angels to come in with what? And I think that there's a process. I'm not against an ad hoc. I formed one in 2018, and it saved our butts. But we don't need to just run into it like it's a savior. We need to process this and have some guidelines, you know? But you don't seem to care about those. You just want to cash in on promises made, apparently. You know, I don't understand it. David's right. Allocation of funds is one thing, ad hoc's the other. And I think we're all saying we're warm to an ad hoc, but we're just not going to do it just to do it.
I don't feel like I need an ad hoc committee to discuss like a broader picture of what's happening in the city in terms of facilities and infrastructure and all those things. I think that's fabulous. The one-time funds, I don't support an ad hoc committee for that.
Which
I
is
think we
why
could do
I'm
that.
making it two separate discussions.
Finished?
I am.
So this was brought up back in January, is brought up also in February. It's brought up in February for the ad hoc. Adam jumped in, said, let me come back to the council. He did a good job with this. He put some parameters down for who would be on the ad hoc committee. All five of us would vote on who would be on that ad hoc committee, so everyone would have a fair shot of who they should be.
Okay, well, that's the first time I've heard of what you just said, that
Well,
we would all vote on.
Why wouldn't we?
Well, you've already named you and David as two of those.
Well, as liaisons.
I'm not sure that I support that.
And that's your prerogative to do so, but that's only as liaisons, and we wouldn't be necessarily the 9 because we wouldn't be voting on anything or having that discussion. We'd have to be quiet. So it'd be 9 people from out there at large. I would imagine all 5 of us would have input on who would be there based on the parameters of 7A of who would be qualified for this. And to parallel processes, as it was brought up prior, was that you folks were waiting to see how the Frog Committee was going to do, if there was taxes
We
going to
all
get passed.
know how that's going to do.
Well-
It's not going to even make the ballot.
So I have the floor, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, I don't need to be lectured to when we
Not
know
lecturing.
that Mr. Boyer has said what he said.
And
Sadly,
and
might I add.
he also has said that an ad hoc committee would be good. There's other number of folks out here that said the ad hoc committee would be advisable to have. I think it's always good when you have communication with the folks out there in the public. And we make the final decision. It would be nice for them to go through the process and identify things with experts out there, what we are not experts in, and bring back some solutions to us that we might not have thought about.
So there's a motion on the floor, and the mayor has said that he doesn't want to include the ad hoc committee in that motion. So I think that just to try to keep this on track, is there a second to his initial motion?
It's important to me that, not that I'm opposed to it, I'm not, but I really do feel strongly that whatever we use this money for, it needs to be something that residents feel and experience. It's their money, it's our money. And that's not to say that the public works share doesn't need a lot of work. I've been there, I know it does. But it's important to me that we feel some of what this money is spent on. And I didn't get from what you were suggesting that streets would be involved in that. Am I wrong, though? Maybe I misunderstood what you were saying.
Clearly not looking to exclude streets or defer streets, and would welcome any additional funding that might come available to be, as a direction, put it into streets to supplement what we're already working to do for streets.
I'd like to understand what the pot of money that we have is. I like what David said, what the gist of his motion is, but I'm uncertain that I can vote without knowing the absolute dollar amount of money that bringing, our reserves from Kyle, Marie, 43%, 42%,
Like about 40%.
down to 30.
So that pot of money is about 4.58 million.
So going from, pick a number, 42? 40, okay. Going from 40 to 30 is 4 point,
Let's call it 4.5 million.
okay. I mean, so we can have that pot of money, but it's not going to cover the public works, build out, which I believe we should do. I support that, but I guess there's been a lot of numbers between
For
a week
immediate
ago and now
and
to
I don't-
understand what is the pot of money? 4 million?
I don't want to discount what the mayor said about the moderate plus category. And so I'll just try to use round numbers here for everyone. So $3 million in San Jose would be available now. Of the additional, let's call it 4.5 million in general fund reserve, which gets you to 7.5.
7.5, right?
I'm not sure, as we sit here today, I just have the estimate at the end of the next 2-year budget cycle for Measure E and Z. That's typically where we have some of the other ancillary capital projects from. That's another 2, so now we're like 9.5. If we don't touch any of the future set-aside pension reserve funds, based on the current estimate of the total public works project, we wouldn't have enough funding. The mayor also indicated in his conversation with Moises that there's also that look at restructuring. And I don't think the mayor's motion is that you take the entire bite. I think his motion is that we would start that project. But the other one-time funding under the motion, would not be allocated for other things that we had talked about. So as I understand the mayor's motion, it's to try to get the public works yard started with a moderate amount, and we can provide better clarity, and Kyle can provide
Okay.
some of those additional dollar
that helps
amounts.
me to understand.
As I understand
No,
that.
no, that's exactly.
But, and back to a comment you made earlier, and then what also was in the staff report under future policy considerations for use of one-time funds, takes us back to the street issue, that there may be that gap of 3 to 3.5 million to accomplish what we said we wanted to do in the strategic plan. So that's why I'm still don't want to spend it all
Understood,
over there,
understood.
because that gap is coming up to accomplish what we already set as a goal. So if we had extra money, I want to make sure that's available to meet that goal. So that's why.
Could we do both? I mean, could we look at some streets and then like the most important things at the public works yard?
I know what the city attorney is going to say, and I'm going to remind you as well. So the mayor has a motion on the table, and before we have additional discussion, if there's a second, we can have additional discussion. But if there's not a second, then it would die for lack of a second, or if there's a second and additional discussion, then we'd eventually have a vote. So my recommendation is, before we have additional conversation, that the body look at a second for the motion that's before it.
Let me ask a question. If we're going to go, if we were to put the $4.5 million into this next phase, we're still on the hook for the whole amount as we go forward.
So the city, as I understand the construction documents, I mean, there are multiple buildings and projects associated with it, and we wouldn't know in what order it could be phased until we had some additional walkthroughs and meetings. It could be that we have to do some things before others. I don't have that detail off the top of my head, but yeah, I mean, we could look at a phasing opportunity. In fact, I believe when the city council approved the actual construction plans, there was conversation at that meeting and discussing the facility out, the potential need to phase some of these. And I think the reality of the city's fiscal position is every facility and road we have is really a phased approach.
Is is it fair to ask, because I'm kind of tracking with Michael, what phase could be started for $4 million?
Well, I think the issue is you'd have to go out and do the RFP and see what it comes back with, and then divvy that up into the various phases once you get the responses back from the contractors.
It's a very realistic idea that this isn't feasible. It just may.
Well, I like to second
Okay,
it, but
slow the
I'm just
arrow
not
there.
sure of all of the variables. Have we done a phase one report? Because if we got to do a phase two or even more,
We're going to get our steps in today. All right, Moises, what you got for us?
that could be 2 or 3 million just right there.
So we do have cost estimates for the site work that's going to be required for the project. We also have estimates for individual components of the project. Part of what we would have to have a conversation with our designers is what's the best way to go about phasing it? My presumption is we should probably do all the site work and then pick one of the buildings to move forward with that makes the most amount of sense from a financial standpoint, certainly, but also from an operational. In other words, what gives us the most bang for our buck in that perspective? So there's still a little bit of work that we're going to have to do with the designers to be able to answer your question with a greater level of certainty about what project, what work, and what the actual amount of money is there. I mean, we have estimates, but to the points that have been raised, ultimately, we'll know how well those estimates are actually grounded in reality after we go out to bid.
So, don't quote me on this, but I think this is going to be my last quick question. If we approve, so if we vote on this and if it's approved, and then it comes back, are we obligated?
No, you're not obligated.
Okay, all right.
Would it be better to continue this discussion until after you get that back? Because if you do the site work, you're going to do the site work for everything, so then you're not going to be able to phase it because you're not going to have any buildings.
I think it's really dependent upon, as I understand, I think Danny and I have kept the same copious notes during all of your comments, none of which are the same. So, it's one of those things where we're trying to find commonalities and trying to, and I know the mayor's got a task in front of him to get the council on the same page. It really, I don't know if it's a continuation of the item, because if the city council takes an action then on an ad hoc committee or something else, and you're not clear about what the roles and responsibilities of that group are and what their financial, scope is, then it confuses the issue further. It becomes more muddy than it is. I think having a resolute direction on the amount of dollars that the city's going to address or try to come back with creates a much clearer picture for the other part of this conversation that I assume will come about a committee and sort of what their roles and responsibilities are.
Yeah, and I think the committee, my vision of a committee isn't just one-time funds. Maybe they go out and explore or guide us or point us toward other funds that we don't even know about yet.
Sure.
Their priorities that they recommend gets us to look at other fundings.
Would you be willing to, just because this motion is hanging out in midair here, be willing to adapt your motion to focus on an amount of one-time funds? And if you're really got your heart set on the public works yard, maybe say something to the effect of, with work on the public works yard and other strategic goals as priorities or something? Would that accomplish what you want to do? Or would you just say the amount or something to move us beyond this point?
Hence, an ad hoc committee to decide some of this and bring it back.
Negative.
No. Well, I understand your question. I appreciate that. And, I don't know, I guess I was optimistic that we might find in our deep well of possibilities of money. Deep well, it's not deep. I get it.
Hope dies last. Yeah, no, I mean,
So, you know, are we up to 9 million?
we would be happy to come back with clarification and on timing. The information presented to you on one-time funding is really by two-year budget, right? So it's by June 30th, 2027. So is how it is. We do know that some funding is available now, obviously. So to the exact dollar amount, we could come back with a precise dollar amount when we talk about if the motion passes, as I understand it, and I think we understand it at this juncture, that is something we could come back with on what those dollar amounts would be removed then from the available one-time resources. So, but it would remove, outside of using some pension funds, as I understand it, or set aside pension reserve funds, a lot of the flexibility of the one-time funds.
I'm not going to die on this one. If it doesn't go, that's fine. It's just trying to motivate to get.
Mayor, if you wouldn't mind asking if there is a second for your motion?
Do we have a second for the motion?
Second.
Okay.
Okay. You guys can have as much conversation as your heart desires now on the motion in front of you. Do we have any draft language for that motion, Kathleen? Come on. You don't speak that?
Yeah. Well, we could use it. Are we including the language that Karen
No, it
requested,
sounds
or
like.
just the original?
No, I seconded the
Original.
original
Mayor,
motion that the
if I
mayor made.
may try to regurgitate, I think the intent of what you said, which I believe the intent of what, you know what? Excellent, look at this.
We have this new program called Agenda Link. It's working.
Thank you, Mayor. Kathleen, would you mind reading that for the record?
Sure. The motion is to define available surplus funds through the reduction of reserves to 30% to exercise the Corp Public Works Yard restructure plan as previously presented and initiate the project now, with any balance of available or short-term realized funding being directed to street restoration. Funds to draw from excess reserves and reprioritization of capital project funds. Do not use pension or OPEB 115 trust funds.
And what's the price tag of that? For the record.
There's an estimated price tag between 12 and 15 million, is that right? Yes, between 12 and 15 million.
It sounds like it's 4.
Yeah, I hear 4.
No, the price
the-
tag of the facility
Well, the
is,
price
as
tag is
presented
12 to
to the
13.
council, was estimated
12 to
between
15.
12 and 15 million. Whether or not it comes back different than that, plus or minus, is subject to the market right now.
So if we allocate the 4 million to the motion, and we know it's 12 to 15 million dollars,
I think that included in that motion is to start on that and to initiate staff to go forward for the clear cost estimating and identify a phased approach to utilize those funds for those facilities.
and it clears out our one-time funding.
Well, as written, it would clear out the reserve one-time funding. Council would have 3 million in the San Jose, 2 million in Measure E. My assumption is the mayor would like all that to be considered as part of that motion.
Consider, yes, it's possible.
All or nothing.
Yeah,
Wait, my understanding was that the motion is for the 4.6.
That is as stated. There, I think the mayor mentioned during the discussion that he would look at the level that is essentially moderate plus, which would require us to look at other one-time funding as options for funding if the project was bid and came back. That's what we would present. So just so we're clear, if the project came back for council, right now, the motion on the board basically ties the 4.6 million for this project. If bids came back, we would also point to the city council and say, here's additional one-time funding, and if by happenstance some other grant funds came open, you would have that. But you'd be faced with an issue of, you know what, maybe the bids come back and it's like $3 million, but it's not, you know, in a perfect world. But you will face another difficult decision down the line, and I don't think that the mayor was trying to avoid that difficult decision. I think he wants to get the project started. It is my understanding from sitting
You're
here.
right, and if it turns out to be infeasible, then so be it.
But we're looking for another $9 to $11 million.
And nothing for streets.
Okay, may we have a vote? Motion fails 3-2. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay.
Are you willing to make a second motion just about the money and not where it's tied to? I'm just throwing that out there.
No, I don't have a number to throw at it, so it's probably not a fair ask.
A number
Of you-
of council
fair ask
members,
of me.
a number of council members have mentioned streets. Would it be helpful if staff returned with what estimated costs are for various segments of streets?
I think, for me, that would be helpful, especially since the staff report said there was some anticipated shortfall. So since that, and tonight, one of our public comment speakers, and I mean, if we're talking about citizen input, that is one that we do get a lot of citizen input about our streets and the condition. So I think that would be helpful. Plus, it's a strategic goal to look at that.
Adam, what do we have currently allocated for streets for this fiscal?
I don't know that number off the top of my head.
About 4 or 5 million?
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. That chart was presentation on average. So it's a lot of money next year in the next fiscal year of the 2-year budget, less this year, more next year, just kind of how the projects with Lone Hill and Glendora Avenue are shaking out. But on average, over the next 7 years, we average between 3 to 3.5 million short of what would be required to, we think, reach the PCI of 70.
I think we're somewhere about
63.
About $7 million we needed annually to get to that number.
Yeah, plus or minus a couple million, depending on what needed to be repaired.
And we're roughly around 5 million right now allocated.
Yeah, like next year it's 8, and then it goes down to 2, and then up to 6. It's just kind of the nature of the 2-year budget and trying to save funding and commingle with for larger water projects, so we're not tearing up the street twice and wasting those resources. So.
And we're
yeah.
talking somewhere about a year to 2 years to go through the engineering process for the roads and everything, and also line it up with water.
Yes and no, depends on the road and project, depends on what street roads could be used for. If it's something like chip seal or slurry seal, then it's a lot quicker project.
So if we were to throw a lot of money at the roads right now, we'd still have to go through that process, and we probably wouldn't.
It'd be a much faster process. You'd be talking months instead of years, for example, to put a shovel in the ground.
But we still have to go through the engineering process.
Some street, as we talked about during that discussion, some street applications are more engineering than others. Some streets require a lot less. But yeah, we could look at projects that take months to complete, not years to complete.
But we're still in the same boat of our facilities need help.
It has been the discussion that's been in your strategic plan now for 7 years. And
Absolutely.
So, yeah, there's always more wants, than haves, and there's difficult policy decisions. The strategic plan clearly states that council is going to try to identify some funding for facilities and do our best to allocate or try to find funding for streets. I mean, it's.
What I'm getting at is we already have allocation for streets, not to where we want to be to get to the number we want to be, but we all have allocation for streets. We don't have allocation for facilities.
And the allocation for streets continues basically to show that there would be a decrease in the overall condition of streets. It is no different than some of the facilities. They are the same discussion. We have some allocation for facilities. We've done HVAC. We had stairs that you approved this evening for La Fetra. Obviously, we were able to fix some HVAC and some other things. There is $50 million in deferred maintenance on city facilities. It is, Councilmember, the exact same conversation on both streets and facilities.
So absolutely, if we don't want to do an ad hoc committee, we, do or don't want to do a workshop, whatever, something has to happen. We need to have that discussion, whatever that form might take. And if if my colleagues, want to vote completely, take me out of it, you guys can vote for whoever you want on there. I don't care. I just think that discussion needs to go forward, and this is what the Frog Committee has wanted. They wanted the discussion to go forward, and they're happy that we're having this discussion because, they've promoted that as well. Whether their tax goes through as successful or not is inconsequential based on their comments that they made, that we're having this discussion. They're pleased with having a discussion. So I think it's up to us to have that, to put that formula together, whatever that might be. I'm inconsequential to that. I just want us to have that conversation. We've been dealing with this, as you said, for 7 years, but I think over the last 5 years or so, it's been more, a little faster paced because you've done a lot of reports, and we have now all that information, and so we can have educated discussion and direction of what we want to do. Yes, we have more facilities we need help with than we have money, but we need to have that discussion. In whatever form that takes, again, I'm inconsequential of that. We just need to have that discussion, have to have something in place to do so. If we want to do the workshop, fine. Ad hoc, fine. I just think that there are people out there that are smarter than us about building stuff than us, and we need their input to make that decision. And again, we make the decision.
I agree with you, but not in terms of the one-time funds. But I think at the larger picture, I agree with you.
That's fine. It can be the larger picture because that was the last item that I put on there to get up, see if we can find some other funds somewhere else. And I know that we're working on that. We're working on a memo going to one of the senators right now and asking for some funds, and we're going to go lobby for that. There are other avenues out there we can take. So if we have this similar to what the Frog Committee has done, but we bring it back to us and in the control of this, then we can have this discussion and we can move this forward. We had a discussion this morning with the former mayors about kicking the can down the road. And it got a little testy at some times about, why we're here too today, because of the kicking the can down the road. We got the can, and we need to do something about it. Just sitting here and doing nothing is not preferable for me. If we make a decision to go, bless you, decision, we need to make a decision to do something and not vacillate back and forth.
I don't think we're not doing anything. I think there's a lot of, it's not going,
I didn't say we're doing
expeditiously.
anything.
Well, you said we're not making progress here. I think we're having the discussion the way that the discussion needs to be had. And I think all of us want to do the right thing for the community. It's just about determining what that is. And how we go about that. I think it's important to all of us. I don't know. I'm not opposed to a committee for the larger picture. I don't need it for these one-time funds. I actually really like what you were saying. I actually like what Karen was saying about the discussions in terms of us, like I can't even remember now what we were calling it, but
Third Tuesday.
Yeah, the third Tuesday.
Yeah, and I think for that, I'm not saying that we're experts, but I'm not saying that those folks aren't. They are our staff who's been giving us reports, consultants that we've paid money. So for this committee or these workshops, I don't need to go find somebody who's going to come and tell me, oh, you should build it like this. I need folks to come and tell us, we value this facility to meet the citizens' needs. We want a facility like X, Y, or Z. This is the type of city we want to live in, and we want, a civic center that meets these needs, or a library that meets these needs, or recreation facilities that have 24-hour coffee shop. I don't know. I'm trying to make something up for you, Annie. But so that's the input that we need to get from citizens. And if they have creative ideas on funding we haven't thought of or something, but we don't need to reinvent the wheel because we have the reports. We have the experts, both in-house and ones we've paid to give us all that information. That's not what I'm looking for in a committee or workshops. I'm looking for citizens to tell us and be informed of what's wrong with what we have now and how can we look to the future? What's the Glendora they want to live in, and what does it look like? And what are they willing to do to make that happen?
That's
That's
important
what
to
I
me.
need to hear, not to have, 20 builders come in or 10 real estate people, no offense, Mr. Boyer, but, tell me about property values or this or that or the other, and no offense to you, Mr. Boyer, but I want citizens to say, this is the kind of community I want to live in. These are the services, these are the facilities, and what are we willing to do to make that happen? And if they know some creative funding we haven't thought of, tell us, but don't go back to square one, because we've gotten that information ad nauseum from staff and consultants we've hired. We don't need to do all that again. We need to know, you, citizen, what is important to you for the Glendora of the future, and how can we make it happen together? That's what I want from a workshop or a committee, not, folks that are going to
Yeah, and I
pitch their business.
agreed, and I didn't intend it to think that a committee for one-time funding, no, I didn't. We don't need that. But
Just asking staff about coming back and timelines and the different options, and one of the things that we could look at, staff can come back utilizing a dollar range of one-time funding. I have inquired about phasing of like the various facilities, whether it's the public works yard or the library. We would need to do some additional due diligence just to even consider some baseline options there. We can return to this body and say, okay, if the council has some direction on the use of one-time funding, and it's a dollar figure, 7 million, 10 million, 12 million, 5 million, whatever that is, we can come back with both facilities, streets, and roads options to give council some context on what that one-time funding gets you. We're happy to do that if that helps with the discussion. We can't provide you any insight onto the committee or subcommittee development. That's squarely within the council's prerogative here, but we can, if it helps assist the council, if we have some guidance on one-time funding. It sounds like the majority of the council says that they can make a decision on the amount of one-time funding. If we have some clarity on what that dollar amount is, we can come back and try to provide some context to what that looks like, both facilities and streets and roads. We're happy to do that.
I like that. Mendel?
Let me just say a couple things. I hearken back to the antique streetlight districts. And there are owners of properties within that district that we're going to get hit hard because they own the properties. So naturally, they didn't want this antique street thing to pass. And if I was one of those people, I would have squawked too. And my concern is that some of the people that I'm hearing that have now these ideas that can either save our built buildings or reconstruct our built buildings are the exact people that own property, a lot of property here in town, that don't want to pay a parcel tax. And I don't fault that. But I'm not sure that their agenda and motive is exactly pure, because it played out right in the antique streetlight scenario. Because they owned the rentals and they were going to have to absorb it or pass it on. So that's why then I'm cautious about all of this stuff, because there's not always agendas that are as pure as it's made out to sound. I would propose that we have 3 workshops, the 5 of us and staff, and hammer out what our objectives are, because I agree with you, Michael, that we've been kicking the can down, we've been talking about this.
Go buy a lottery ticket.
Huh?
I'll go buy a lottery ticket.
Well, yeah, but have 3 two-hour workshops, so 6 hours of hammering out what our objectives are, what the pot of money is, what all of the reports have said from engineers that we paid a gazillion bucks to, and okay, this is where we are. Now, what do we really need to do to either the 5 of us choose a pathway or create an ad hoc group with people who are really invested in resurrecting some of the buildings and projects that we have that sadly have not had care for 50 years.
And are you saying those workshops, that would be a public workshop that the public
The public could come,
to?
sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
But-
could all
but-
these people that you were mentioning,
But-
like, could
but-
anybody
but-
come to these? What's the rules?
It would have to be a public workshop
Yeah.
if the entire council.
But, you know,
Like, what's the level, like, what are the rules on community participation in that?
It would be a Brown Act meeting, it would be noticed, agendized.
Yeah.
The public could come, and you could invite them to make comments, but that you don't need to give them the opportunity to make comments or even directly participate. It would be staff preparing a presentation to the council and having a
Well, we could
focused-
allow
a
them
focused
to.
discussion.
We could give them time to do that. I mean, it's-
Yeah, we've had workshops where council opens it up for comments beforehand, and then afterwards or halfway through a staff presentation, you open it back up and the public comes back up and shares their comments once they have a little more education.
But I'd like to see in those meetings, okay, what are the potential grants? Good or bad? We have not discussed the lending group that Adam and I talked about. And I'm not saying that that's the way to go, but it's a private lender that could offer us, $100 million to, do these things. And this company works with B of A and for leases and improvements that they have to buildings that they own, AT&T. I mean, this group is huge. Look at what available funds that we do. Let's just nail a number down instead of kind of, by the back of your hand saying, well, there's 4 million, 5 million, I mean, look at grants, as I've already said. Look at private, funds. I don't know if other cities have gone out and been able to secure that. I don't know. I know that Gary was going to talk to a person about some private funding. I don't know if he has. I don't know what they said. I don't know. But let's just have three meetings of just getting all of the data, all of the plans in. How current are our plans for all of these buildings that we're talking about? And then at the end of the third, meeting, either we make a choice or we create an ad hoc group, but we get this thing going.
May I take that as a motion, as a direction?
Sure, I will. I haven't been trained on the high tech. The mayor gets the training first, so I'm just,
He passed, by the way, so that's.
Shalom Mir. You can make a motion out of whatever I said, and
It sounds like you wanted to embark on a 3-workshop series that covers one-time use of funds, the current status of major capital needs that we know about, and then a discussion on what a committee would look like if the council were to establish one?
yeah, current plans, grants, private funding, this line of credit group.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's also beyond the one-time funds, other funding.
Other
Yeah,
funding.
don't focus just on.
Yeah. And it would be us and the staff, and the public, of course, is invited. The more can come, better.
Frequency,
Frequency would
to
be once a
determined.
month. I'm a retired guy, so, I got to get my golf in and my grandkids in, so I'm not looking for another meeting, but I agree. We've been kicking this can down the road, and it's time for,
So a motion to
Stop it.
embark on
Motion.
a three-series workshop, or three-series workshop to discuss the items that you just mentioned.
and Michael, I know that you've been doing some, work. Hey, let's talk about that work. I mean, maybe there's a nugget there. I mean, these are the workshops that we can have and where we don't have to talk about anything else. But it's this, and we're going to get it done.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. May we vote? Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience.
And we'll also include one more just to receive and file that report.
Yeah, make a motion to receive and file that report.
I'll second that. Please vote.
And
What? Oh, I'm sorry. Just tell me.
Motion carried to receive and file, 5-0. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think
Not till 10:30.
we might make it. Okay, item 16 under new business, the annual report for the Business Improvement District and consideration of a resolution of intent to levy and collect assessments for fiscal year 2026, 2027 for the Glendora Village Business Improvement District. And welcome Chantel Correa.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight, I'm presenting the fiscal year 26-27 annual report for the Glendora Village Business Improvement District, or the BID. Each year, the BID board submits an annual report outlining how assessment funds will be used for the upcoming fiscal year. Tonight, council is being asked to review the report and consider adopting the resolution of intent to levy BID assessments. If approved, notices will be mailed out to businesses within the district, and public hearing will be scheduled for final consideration. There are no changes to the bid boundaries or assessment methodology for this upcoming fiscal year. The annual report outlines planned activities and a high-level budget, the current reserve balance, and which supports the bid's ongoing operations. This slide just shows the existing bid boundaries, which are unchanged. The assessment methodology remains unchanged for the current year. Primary businesses are addressed based on the category and location. Secondary businesses are assessed at the lower rate. And certain uses, such as residential and independent contractors, are not assessed. The proposed budget for the fiscal year 26-27 is balanced at approximately $126,500 in both reserve and expenditures. Bid assessment remains the core funding source, with the wine walk continuing to serve as a primary revenue driver. The reserve funds remain intact as a contingency and is not being used to support ongoing operations. The bid board approved the annual report earlier this month. If the council adopts the resolution of intent tonight, the notices will be mailed out to all the affected businesses. The public hearing final consideration is scheduled for April 28th. Staff recommends that the City Council approve the fiscal year 26-27 bid annual report and adopt the resolution of intent to levy and collect assessments. And before, I just want to show my appreciation to Joe Cena, which he is the CEO and president of the chamber, and all the work that he does with the bid. And he's also here for any questions if you guys should have some. And that concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bring it back for any questions or comments. Michael?
No questions.
Mendel?
Well, I just want to thank Joe for the yeoman lift that he's given to the board. I don't know this to be true, but I think it is. This is the first time a budget has been done that has a surplus in at least a long time. I know that Michael and I used to sit up here and say not so nice things about their lack of making a buck or two. And I appreciate whatever the magic that you've had that, you've done. So thank you, and I support this.
Great, thank you. Shauna?
Likewise, I concur with what Mendel said, and thank you, Joe. And Glendora sure likes our wine. Fun event.
Great.
That's it.
Karen?
Thank you, Joe, and thank you to Chantel and to Tiffany for being at so many of the community events in the village and being supportive of that. Appreciate the team effort on everyone's part, so thanks.
Thank you, and I congratulate your work, Joe's work, and the bid board. I know they have a ambitious strategic plan that they're working toward, and it's not easy, and they're making long strides and try to get those baby steps done, but they'll make it, so that's good. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the recommendations.
I would move that.
I'll second it.
Oh, I'm
Motion.
sorry, David. I didn't see that you.
No, I didn't touch it.
Oh, okay. It's
Oh.
shows here a motion made by you, so I didn't. I don't want to step on your toes there. I didn't know that.
Well, I thought, okay, whatever.
Do I correct it? Just
I don't care.
That's fine.
Let's just vote.
Okay, please vote.
Thank you.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Chantel, very much. Thank you, Mr. Cena. Item 17, the 2025 General Plan Annual Progress Report and the Housing Element Implementation Annual Progress Report. And presenting is Senior Planner Yeleni Siva.
Good evening,
Welcome.
Mayor and Council.
Thanks for hanging out for us.
Thanks for hanging on, too. We are requesting that the City Council receive and file the state's annual General Plan Progress Report update and also the Housing Element Implementation Annual Progress Report for the 2025 calendar year. The state requires that the city submit a General Plan Annual Progress Report to the City Council, the Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation, and also the Department of Housing and Community Development on the status of the general plan, its implementation progress, and how the city meets the region's housing needs. The general plan is often referred to as the blueprint of the city and is a comprehensive, long-range plan that provides for the framework for future growth and enhancements. The city completed a comprehensive general plan update in 2007, which is known as Community Plan 2025. It is comprised of various elements that in each address various topics and provide goals, policies, and programs. The elements can be updated whenever needed, except for the housing element, which is required to be updated every 8 years. The most recently updated elements are the housing element, which was approved by HCD in August 2023, and the safety element that was updated in October of last year. The state also requires that a progress report be submitted on a yearly basis to provide an update of the city's progress in implementing its policies and programs identified in the general plan. Additionally, the report also gives an update on how many housing units were constructed during the reporting period of the calendar year. HCD uses this information to track the city's housing information, including the city's progress towards its RHNA. The city is currently on its 6th cycle of the housing element, which was approved by the City Council in 2022 and approved by the state on August 10th of 2023. There are 16 housing programs that address community housing needs. During the reporting period, January 2025 through December 31st, 2025, the following were approved, permitted, and completed. The Planning Commission and Council approved entitlements for a total of 116 housing units, and the Building and Safety Division permitted a total of 51 single-family homes, ADUs, and multifamily units. The Building and Safety Division also conducted a total of 6 final inspections for single-family homes, ADUs, and multifamily units. The following are images of projects that comply with land use element that were approved by the Planning Commission and yourselves. These are also land use element projects. This is also a restaurant land use element project. This is the Glendora People Movement Project, which was a part of the circulation element programs through open space and recreation as well. So your next steps would be to have the general plan annual progress report and the housing element implementation annual progress report be submitted to you prior to it being filed with the state before April 1st. That is our recommendation, is to receive and file both of these documents. Thank you.
Thank you, Yeleni, very much. Great report. I'll bring it back. Do we have any questions or discussion? Shauna?
Nothing for me.
Mr. Avalos?
Thank you for your report. I just have one question. We fell really short on what the numbers were supposed to be and what we actually did. Did we get any pushback at all when we submit this?
Not yet. They ask us to zone, we can't build, and that's been the conversation we've had since the beginning of time. And so, the city council has taken, additional items outside of just, housing, where we've given density bonuses for commercial, if they do some work on that property too. So they haven't taken a punitive approach yet. Would it surprise me if there's legislation in the future that tries to hold cities accountable for actually building those units? No, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know how, but it wouldn't surprise me.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Mendel?
Kind of along that same line, I affirmed today with Adam that our numbers have not changed. What was approved is still approved. And so I want to make that known. There are some folks that kind of watch this, which is good. But nothing has changed from what I've been told. So I just want to make sure that we all know that.
Thank you. Karen? And I don't have any questions. Thank you for your report very much. With that, I'll accept a motion to receive and file the report.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Avalos, second.
Second.
Mr. Thompson, kindly vote. Motion carries 5-0. And with that, that concludes our business. I'll bring back for any closing comments. Seeing or hearing none, thank you. I will adjourn at 10:18 in honor of former Mayor Sue Bauer. May she rest in peace. Thank you.